Chapter 10-11, Spectral Soul. Spectral Soul. Chapter 10-11, Spectral Soul. Spectral Soul. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The immortals present could not believe their own eyes. Zither Mind Tribulation, Star Flow Tribulation, these two grand tribulations were easily stopped by Spectral Soul. It was as easy as drinking water. This is the might of a rank 9 demon venerable. Fang Yuan's heart shook. Spectral Soul was already dead, what was present now was merely his soul. This gigantic soul was already beyond normal form. He was thousands of meters tall, like an imposing giant. The dark clouds that the 10 extreme immortal zombie lifeless formation created merely reached the height of his waist. Fang Yuan and the others were in the air, resembling flies. Looking at Spectral Soul's leg, it resembled a giant mountain peak. Spectral Soul's chest had reached the clouds, he was as tall as the sky. He had 3 heads. The front head had dragon horns, a lion's mane, snake eyes, and elephant tusks. The left head had a peach-colored forehead, hair like grass, and 3 flower-like eyes. The right head had a fringe of clouds, eyes resembling lightning, ears like fire, and a golden mouth. He had 1,000 arms, 500 on each side. They were dark like ink, his muscles were bulging with firm lines, oozing with demonic aura. He also had 1,000 ghostly hands. Earlier, Heavenly Court had spent huge effort to use embroidered tower to immobilize a ghostly hand to the ground, but that was merely 1 out of 1,000. Ah! This appearance. Don't tell me. Impossible. Impossible. Fairy Li Shan had recognized Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, she screamed in disbelief. Her arms were covering her head, she shook her head as she retreated, she lost all the grace that a rank 7 Gu immortal had. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's appearance was not a secret, it was widely spread in the Gu immortal world, even in the mortal world it was well known. Especially in southern border, many villages and countless mortals had a culture of revering Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. The people used clay to create a statue of Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, and would pray to it during festivals and offerings. Hei Lu Lan's pupils shrunk to pin size, she was so shocked she could not speak, her entire body was shivering. Gulp, Tai Bai Yunsheng swallowed his saliva, his body was covered in cold sweat. Fang Yuan showed a moved expression full of anticipation. His shock from earlier had vanished. This is the limit of soul path. The soul turns from phantom to solid, it can interfere with the material world, it is as condensed as a physical body, and is unbelievably powerful. Such a soul foundation definitely surpasses 100 million man soul. My soul compared to it, is like an ant versus the moon. But even the powerful Spectral Soul Demon Venerable died in the end, his soul returning to the door of life and death. Now that he has broken out, defying heaven and fate, what is he trying to do? When can I reach such a level as well? But even at this level, he cannot avoid death. I pursue eternal life, does it truly exist? Fang Yuan's eyes shined with bright light, at this moment, he felt greatly excited. Even as an immortal zombie, he could feel a sensation of hot-bloodedness. One could learn from examples set by capable people. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable was a predecessor who was undeniably a forerunner of Gu cultivation. Even Fang Yuan, who had 500 years of experience, was small like a fly when he was facing Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. But Fang Yuan's fear had gone away entirely. He felt deep excitement, it was feverish. Like a person who aspires to climb the highest mountain seeing an immeasurably tall peak, even if that was not the goal, he still felt deeply motivated and wanted to climb up, to surpass it. Fang Yuan had long since forgotten about death. If he died on the path of ascension, even if his corpse was desecrated and his soul was utterly destroyed, so what? This was the goal that he pursued. Bam! At this moment, Heaven Overseeing Tower burst out with a grand light, it shattered Spectral Soul's ghostly hand and regained freedom. It was a rank 9 immortal Gu house after all. Inside the tower, the atmosphere was extremely heavy. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals bit their lips, seeing this overwhelming giant, they felt great pressure in their hearts. As expected of Spectral Soul, such vast demonic might, it is simply terrifying. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord laughed loudly, the aura in his body rose as his silvery hair swayed, his sleeves were fluttering like a war banner. His fighting spirit soon spread to the other Heavenly Court Gu immortals. The immortals' eyes burned with passion. Heaven's will cannot be defied. Heaven cannot be defied. Even if you are Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, who had once slaughtered the world and caused endless bloodshed. Your era is over. Even if we die today, we will protect the great Tao of Heaven. Come, activate Heaven Overseeing Tower. The immortals had firm determination. Heaven Overseeing Tower shined with an unprecedented dazzling light. Spectral Soul's left head looked at it as it growled, several hands were moving around. The entirety of Spectral Soul moved with a speed disproportionate to its size. In an instant, several hands grabbed Heaven Overseeing Tower tightly. More and more ghostly hands emerged, overlapping over one another, surrounding Heaven Overseeing Tower in the center. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals were unrelenting. Heaven Overseeing Tower's light shone through the crevices of the ghostly hands' fingers, shooting out light that resembled sharp blades. More than 10 ghostly hands had layered together, but they shook vaguely. Spectral Soul, after getting to this point, actually ignored Heaven Overseeing Tower. The three heads looked towards the sky, having grim expressions. Even though he was several thousand meters tall, the sky was taller, it was still above his head. As if angered by Spectral Soul's arrogance, the deepest part of the sky was conjuring the strongest thunderstorm it could muster. An apocalyptic feeling engulfed the immortals. This is no longer a grand tribulation. This is a myriad tribulation. Apocalyptic myriad tribulation. Shadow Sect's Gu immortals were lost for words. Beyond grand tribulations, there were myriad tribulations. Myriad tribulations were terrifying. If a rank 8 Gu immortal passed all three, they would become a rank 9 venerable. Heaven was enraged. It knew that grand tribulations were useless against Spectral Soul, thus, it conjured a myriad tribulation. Myriad tribulation, wind lightning prison. Fast. 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 The myriad tribulation descended faster than any Gu immortal's expectations. Countless lightning bolts descended from the sky, countless tornadoes coiled around Spectral Soul's body like pythons and dragons. Spectral Soul's three heads roared at the sky angrily. His 6 eyes shot out blood-red light that was oozing with killing intent. It had an intimidating aura. 1,000 arms moved together, ghostly hands tore the tornadoes apart while his hill-like fists punched against the lightning bolts in the sky. He Lu Lan and the others could not speak anymore. The scene in front of them was like the reenactment of a legendary tale. The myriad tribulation was targeting Spectral Soul and the 10 extreme formation. Fang Yuan and the others were inside the formation. They were rather safe. This myriad tribulation's power is much higher than ordinary ones. Our main body can endure it. The 10 extreme formation. It has been refined by 60% already. Only 60%, the following tribulations will become more terrifying. Saying this, Shadow Sect's Gu immortals became silent. Their real archenemy was not Heavenly Court or Fang Yuan, it was Heaven. If they were in their complete state, Shadow Sect's group was confident. But because of Heavenly Court and Fang Yuan, they were in an incomplete state. In fact, the 10 extreme formation had almost been about to break earlier. They only salvaged it by sacrificing Zombie Alliance. Sacred Feather City is lost and our main body has appeared. We serve little purpose now. That's right, we should sacrifice ourselves to the 10 extreme formation and save some time. That is the best way. Then, what about those people? Leave them to us. Ing Wu Xie spoke this as he looked at Bo Qing. The later tribulations would be more powerful. Shadow Sect's Gu immortals had little use in resisting the tribulations. They might as well use themselves to accelerate the refinement of the formation. The true identity of these Shadow Sect Gu immortals was that they were Spectral Soul Demon Venerables split souls. Precisely because of this, Shadow Sect could remain mysterious and hide in the background, developing for so many years without exposing themselves. This was also why Shadow Sect's Gu immortals disregarded death. They were united and did not care about sacrifice. This huge force was simply a one-man show by Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. After discussion, Shadow Sect's Gu immortals, including 7-Star Child and Song Zixing, made the same choice as Old Man Yanshi. They entered the formation and sacrificed themselves. Only 2 people were left. One was Xianxia. He had the pure dream reality seeker physique. His cultivation level also rose as time passed. At the last moments of his life, he would fully become rank 9, he was the final trump card of Spectral Soul. The other was immortal zombie Bo Qing. He had also been one of Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's split souls, but right now, he was only Bo Qing's immortal zombie body. The remnant soul inside was not Bo Qing but Mo Yao. Mo Yao's remnant soul would not help in the formation even if she went in, she could only be refined as immortal material. This was not worth it, thus she stayed behind. Currently, Spectral Soul was controlling the situation, resisting the Myriad tribulation while suppressing Heaven Overseeing Tower. Immortal zombie Bo Qing and Xianxia had no more worries, they charged towards Fang Yuan and the others. Fang Yuan and the others were not their match, they quickly retreated. But being encircled by the formation, and with space path method sealed, where could they run to? Bo Qing waved his hand and sword light flew out, chopping off Fairy Li Shan's head as blood spewed out of her neck. The sword immortal strength could not be resisted. Man as before. At the crucial moment, Tai Bai Yunxing activated man as before immortal Gu. Fairy Li Shan returned to her former state, touching her neck, her eyes were filled with fear. Immortal zombie Bo Qing's arms were behind his back, he laughed arrogantly, merely a rank 6-time path immortal Gu, how can it stop me? As he said this, Fairy Li Shan's eyes widened as sword chi burst out of her body, turning her into a pile of mushy flesh. Little ant. He Lulan cried out in pain, her eyes were bright red as she charged towards Bo Qing. Xianxia blocked Fang Yuan. He stared at Fang Yuan intently. Fang Yuan, you were actually able to leave my dream realm, very interesting. Then, with my rank 8 cultivation level, I want to see if you can escape from it again. You know my name? Fang Yuan growled, feeling something amiss. He, you are an otherworldly demon, you are still useful to Shadow Sect, I will spare your life. Don't think of using Spring-Autumn Cicada, this rank 6 immortal Gu has already been deduced by Old Man Yanshi. In its current state, it cannot be used, isn't that right? Xianxia was confident of victory, he approached with a smile. What? Fang Yuan's entire body shook. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know, report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10-12, Murdering Kin, Slaughtering Everyone. Chapter 10-12, Murdering Kin, Slaughtering Everyone. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. 100,000 years ago. Southern border, Xianxia Mountain. It was night time, darkness was everywhere. Wind and thunder rumbled, lightning flashed across the battlefield at times. Partway up Xianxia Mountain, more than 10 Gu masters' corpses were on the ground. It rained heavily, but it could not wash away the thick and bloody smell of the place. A battle had just ended, there were only 2 people left on the battlefield, the victor was evident. Ha ha ha. A young man laughed while looking at the sky, his eyes were blood red, his expression was filled with bloodthirst. He slowly walked towards the other Gu master. The other Gu master was an old man, he was heavily injured and could not battle anymore. He retreated in a hurry, but he tripped and fell into the mud. The young Gu master slowly walked in the rain, standing in front of the old Gu master, looking down imposingly, his gaze was cold and icy, there was not a hint of warmth. But the old Gu master's gaze did not carry fear, instead, it was filled with disbelief and fury. The elderly man shouted, "Why? Why? I am your grandfather, I brought you up, I taught you everything you know. Your accomplishments today are all because of the clan's nurturing. Why did you attack the clan's higher-ups, why did you repay our kindness with enmity? Why? Why?" Facing the elderly man's questioning, the young Gu master lowered his gaze, smiling lightly. Why? I did not really consider that. If I have to give a reason, maybe it is because I was annoyed. Annoyed? That's right. Saying things like, our clan is weaker than the other party, we should endure it and suffer in silence. Saying things like, we should respect the old and love the young, we should be courteous and have integrity, we should not talk back to elders. Saying things like, the clan is relying on me to defend its reputation, I need to think for the clansmen, that is how I can become a brilliant clan leader, it is really annoying. Since I was young, I have felt annoyed, I thought I could endure it, but I kept enduring and finally, I could not anymore. The young Gu master said as his mouth opened, revealing his pale white teeth. Just because of this? The old Gu master was furious, he sat up in anger. He stared with wide-opened eyes as he scolded, why did you become like this? What were you actually thinking about? I must have been blind, I raised you for so many years in vain. I actually wanted to hand the village to you. The old Gu master angrily rebuked until he cried, he sobbed uncontrollably. Enough. Enough. The young Gu master had a ruthless expression, the old Gu master's crying made him extremely annoyed. He raised his right hand, slashing down. Whoosh. With a soft sound, the old Gu master was cut in two, blood spewed out as his intestines flowed out, he had died without satisfaction. The young Gu master became calm, he stopped moving. He wore a black robe, standing in the rain like a statue. He lowered his head, looking at the corpse below him, memories of the past appeared in his mind involuntarily. When he was a child, his grandfather had brought him to ride horses and fly kites. When his superb aptitude was revealed, his grandfather smiled in joy. When he became a Gu master, his grandfather taught him personally. He taught him to handle the clan affairs, he taught him meticulously. A long time passed. The young Gu master let out a breath, he started to laugh. Ha ha ha. Soon, his laughter became louder as he raised his head, looking at the sky with his arms wide open. His tears flowed out, he was filled with sorrow, but on his face, there was an expression of utter satisfaction. He felt like he was someone who was drowning. Suddenly, he had reached the surface of the water and struggled to get to the shore. He breathed in deeply, he could smell a thick, bloody stench, it assaulted him, seemingly filled with the rage of his clansmen. But he felt that this air was goddamn fresh. Even though I am very sad, is this freedom? If I had known this, I would have killed them long ago. These annoying things should have been killed long beforehand. From now on, I will kill whatever annoys me. The young Gu master screamed in the rain, his excitement was evident on his face. Crack. A flash of lightning went by, illuminating the young Gu master's expression of joy. 100,000 years later. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, the young Gu master's face was still illuminated by this light. But now, he was already entirely different, he was a monster that was thousands of meters tall, with 3 heads and 1,000 arms. So noisy, non-stop rumbling, enough is enough. Spectral Soul roared. Boom. 1,000 arms exerted force, demonic aura surged and filled all the surroundings, they coiled around the tornadoes and tore them to shreds. The impact of his actions caused the clouds over the whole area to stir. He suppressed the wind and lightning. The lightning bolts completely vanished under his wrath. The clouds dispersed and the sun returned, the Myriad tribulation, wind-lightning prison, had been resolved by Spectral Soul. Even a Myriad tribulation could not stop him. The might of a demon venerable, it was fully displayed. All who witnessed this, be it Fang Yuan's side, or Heavenly Court's Gu immortals, they were in shock. Did we succeed? Bo Qing and Ning Wu Xia looked back, joy showing on their faces. But immediately, the sky turned dark again, countless gray clouds gathered above Spectral Soul's head. The second Myriad tribulation was gathering strength. Bo Qing and Ning Wu Xia's expressions turned dark. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals heaved a sigh of relief. Spectral Soul's 6 eyes showed a pondering expression. Suddenly, he raised hundreds of arms, stabbing into the dark clouds at his waist. The dark clouds were formed by the 10 extreme formation. Receiving Spectral Soul's help, the clouds shook intensely. Oh no! He is accelerating the formation. Even though I do not know what he is trying to refine, we cannot let him succeed. Everyone, collaborate with me. Under Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord's lead, Heaven Overseeing Tower turned phantom. It flew out, bypassing the encirclement of the ghostly hands. At the next moment, Heaven Overseeing Tower turned back into material form. With a loud sound, it propelled forward and crashed into Spectral Soul's right head fiercely. At once, Spectral Soul's head caved in from the impact. His chin was slammed into the position of the cheekbones. Spectral Soul roared furiously. 100 hands grabbed at Heaven Overseeing Tower. Again. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord shouted. The 6 Heavenly Court Rank 8 Gu immortals around him were in charge of this. At the critical moment, Heaven Overseeing Tower turned phantom again, causing Spectral Soul's attack to miss. This ability to turn phantom was one of Heaven Overseeing Tower's methods. But it was not easy to activate. A large amount of thoughts and concentration was needed. It was like graceful chaotic dual stages ability to absorb attacks. 6 Heavenly Court Gu immortals turned the tower phantom twice. They were breathing heavily in exhaustion. Heaven Overseeing Tower floated above Spectral Soul's head in phantom form. But at this moment, 100 of Spectral Soul's strong dark arms shrunk immensely, turning dry, thin and long. Obtaining his help, the 10 extreme immortal zombie lifeless formation underwent a huge change. The scattered dark clouds gathered towards the center. At the center of the dark clouds, a round ball could be vaguely seen. It spun on its own, shining with 14 different colored lights. Seeing this, Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord had an anxious expression. He ordered, "Chop off these arms." Heaven Overseeing Tower was like a rocket. It drew an eye-piercing light rainbow in the sky as it slashed forward. The light rainbow cut all of Spectral Soul's arms off upon contact. Ingwu Xie, go and deal with Heavenly Court's Gu immortals. Immortal Zombie Bo Qing called out. It was a simple matter for them to deal with Fang Yuan's side. But because of a series of events, they were constantly interrupted. Ingwu Xie gritted his teeth. He was unwilling to leave at this moment. Give me a moment to make Fang Yuan sleep first. Saying so, he activated the rank 8 immortal killer move, lead soul into dream. Fang Yuan could not dodge. He was dragged into the dream realm. At the pavilion in the center of the lake, the music from the zither could be heard. Fang Yuan met star constellation immortal venerable again. Unravel dream. Unravel dream. Unravel dream. Unravel dream. Unravel dream. Unravel dream. Fang Yuan hurriedly activated his dream path killer move, but the dream realm held firm. All he saw were transparent ripples in his vision. His unravel dream might work against the dream realm, but it was only rank 6. In contrast, Ingwu Xie's killer move was rank 8. The difference between the two was too vast. Fang Yuan could not unravel the dream realm. At once, Fang Yuan's heart sank to rock bottom. The zither music continued. As star constellation immortal venerable smiled at Fang Yuan gently, she sang with a soft voice. Fang Yuan smiled bitterly. He knew that he had lost. Phantom form. Heaven Overseeing Tower dodged Spectral Soul's attack again. But Spectral Soul's ghostly hands did not stop. They drove into the 10 extreme formation. Heaven Overseeing Tower was prepared to attack again, but one of Spectral Soul's heads opened its eyes and gazed at Heaven Overseeing Tower, immobilizing it. Heaven Overseeing Tower was unable to change out of its phantom form. Ha ha ha, this time, why don't you try and escape? Ingwu Xie placed his hands at his waist, laughing smugly. Fang Yuan. He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng shouted. But Fang Yuan was deep in sleep. He could not be woken up. Bo Qing was about to kill He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng, when there was suddenly a huge suction force from the ground. The immortals were caught off guard. They were all sucked into the ground. Their legs were deeply buried in the ground. A strong force was restricting them, preventing them from moving. Grand tribulation, earth collapse. Bo Qing and Ingwu Xie were shocked. they did not expect that while the Myriad tribulation was dealing with Spectral Soul, there was actually a grand tribulation waiting to ambush them. Why are they not restricted? Soon, both of them were shocked again. They saw that after landing on the ground, He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing regained their freedom, they could move freely. He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing were shocked and joyful. The latter quickly grabbed Fang Yuan, who was sleeping, and retreated rapidly. What made them even more joyful was that after the 10 extreme formation created the mysterious ball, the force that restricted the space around them vanished. If Fang Yuan woke up, they would be able to use fixed immortal travel and escape. But Fang Yuan was deep in sleep. Immortal zombie Bo Qing's eyes shined with deep killing intent. He was about to use his sword path Immortal Goo, when he felt that the thoughts in his mind, just as they appeared, were sucked out and into the ground. Evidently, the power of the Grand Tribulation Earth collapse had a variety of targets. Not only could it target the Goo immortal's body, it could even affect their thoughts, wills, and emotions. Just like this, Bo Qing could only watch as He Lulan and the others escaped from under his nose. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1013, Gray Memory. Chapter 1013, Gray Memory. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. This Grand Tribulation Earth collapse was completely unreasonable. Not only were the Goo immortals trapped in the ground, their thoughts were also interrupted. Without thoughts to mobilize their Goo worms, what methods could Goo immortals use? Unless they could use wisdom path methods to resist it. But the condition for that was, the wisdom path method had to be set up in advance. Otherwise, once they fell into Earth collapse, even if the Goo immortal had a wisdom path method to use, they could not unleash it. Taking action in advance was the only way. Without the initiative, one was doomed. This showed the power of the Grand Tribulation. One could just imagine the might of the Myriad tribulation. Damn it! Xianxia struggled continuously. There were few results from his actions. He sank deeper and deeper as he screamed. Stop struggling, stop thinking. It will make our situation worse, we cannot deal with this at the moment. Immortal zombie Bo Qing who was beside him said in a calm tone. Or strictly speaking, Mo Yao's remnant soul was very calm. She was experienced. When she was alive, she helped her lover Bo Qing with his tribulation. The Myriad tribulation that she had seen before was more terrifying than this. Comparatively, the Grand Tribulation Earth collapse was harmless and gentle. We can only hope that our main body saves us. Xianxia sighed, looking at Spectral Soul. Only to see that Spectral Soul was also sinking. Half of his huge legs were already below the surface of the ground. Not just that, his left leg's lower portion was tightly sewed onto the ground. This was the result of an earlier attack by the Immortal Goo House embroidered tower. Even though Spectral Soul was powerful and mighty, and had used his full efforts, he could not control the entire situation. At this moment, out of his 6 eyes, 2 were staring at Heaven Overseeing Tower, preventing it from moving, the other 4 were staring at the sky. At the top of the sky, gray-colored clouds were growing in thickness, they descended slowly. The second Myriad tribulation had started. But it was different from the first, wind lightning prison, that was extremely fast beyond one's reaction speed. In an instant, the wind and lightning would approach a person and attack them. This Myriad tribulation however, was very slow. It was so slow that anyone who was undergoing the tribulation could retaliate in many ways. But Spectral Soul did not move. He stood quietly, like a solemn mountain. Did our main body get hit already? Xianxia shouted, looking extremely anxious, this is such a good chance, you have to retaliate. But until the gray cloud completely shrouded Spectral Soul, he did not move, he stared at Heaven Overseeing Tower, controlling it firmly. Heavenly Court's Goo immortals were troubled. They used the Phantom method to make Heaven Overseeing Tower evade Spectral Soul's attacks. But to think that Spectral Soul's Phantom Path attainment level was beyond expectations, he was certainly a great grandmaster. Heaven Overseeing Tower's Phantom tactic was taken advantage of by Spectral Soul, becoming unable to return to its normal form. Then how could it fight or do anything in that state? The myriad tribulation is coming. Xia gritted his teeth, looking at the gray cloud descend slowly. Immortal zombie Bo Qing squinted, his muscles were tense. The grand tribulation earth collapse was enough to make them defenseless and helpless. Now that the myriad tribulation had descended, was it the end for Bo Qing and Xia? The gray cloud descended, but it caused no harm. What is going on? Is this a harmless myriad tribulation? Xia was nervous, seeing that there was no disturbance. He touched his body all over as he cried out in suspicion. Bo Qing did not answer him. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals recognized this myriad tribulation, but Xia was unable to obtain the answer. Is this gray memory? The Heavenly Court Gu immortal who recognized it cried out. What is gray memory? The Heavenly Court Gu immortal recalled, when I was young, I had once obtained the inheritance of a rank 8 Gu immortal. In the past, this rank 8 Gu immortal failed to pass a myriad tribulation, gray memory. During his final moments, he left behind his inheritance. This myriad tribulation is harmless to the body, but it draws out the person's deepest memories. These memories were either those which had caused huge pain to the Gu immortal's mind, or were a trauma in their life. Don't look down on this myriad tribulation. That rank 8 senior did not even last 15 minutes under this myriad tribulation. He lost all his motivation and became dejected without any fighting spirit left in him. He lost all interest in life. The saying goes, you are your worst enemy. Looking at Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, he was invincible in the world, then wasn't his biggest enemy himself? For everyone in the world, even if we become a rank 9 Venerable, we will have a period of time when we were weak. We cultivate step by step, becoming stronger along the way. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable slaughtered people over the world. He had an immense murderous nature. People guessed that he might have suffered some trauma when he was young. Who does not have any painful memories in the deepest part of their mind? Who does not have any shameful memories that they cannot express? Who has never made any decision that went against their nature? Along the way, who has never made a mistake? Amazing, simply amazing. This myriad tribulation is incredible. Perhaps even Spectral Soul is going to falter here. Myriad tribulation, gray memory. Because he recognized this myriad tribulation, Spectral Soul did not move. He knew that no attacks could resolve this tribulation. Only by entering it and facing his past, all the shame, trauma, humiliation and anger, could he pass this tribulation. The gray clouds coiling around his body suddenly had bright lights, there was even sound emitting from them. What was presented in front of the immortals was a scene from Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's childhood. Kill her. Kill her. Kill her. A band of Gu masters surrounded a family of 3, their eyes were reddened as they shouted ruthlessly. Father! You cannot kill mother. A child protected his heavily injured mother, yelling with all his energy. Humph, all demonic path members should be executed. We of the righteous path have to uphold justice and slay members of the demonic path. Why can't we kill her? Not only can we kill her, we must kill her. Only by killing her can our clan's humiliation be purged. The old Gu master who was leading the group, said with a righteous tone, he shouted angrily, he was the grandfather of the boy, the leader of the clan. The clan leader's words received a warm cheer from all of the clan elders and elite Gu masters. They raised their arms and shouted. Kill! 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 Whoosh! With a soft sound, fresh blood spewed out. The boy quickly turned around. At the next moment, his eyes opened wide, as his pupils shrunk to pin size. He saw his father had moved in front of him, his face was red and he was gritting his teeth, there were tears in his eyes as he suppressed his intense emotions. The dagger that he was holding had already stabbed deeply into the heart of his beloved wife. The boy opened his mouth and wanted to scream. But he did not make any sound. From that day onwards, he became very quiet. Evidently, this boy was Spectral Soul Demon Venerable when he was a child. Under the influence of gray memory, his childhood trauma was no longer hidden, it was displayed in front of everyone. The gray fog moved, as another scene appeared. Several years had passed. The young boy had grown slightly, he was standing in front of his grandfather respectfully. His grandfather, who was the clan leader, drank a sip of tea, asking casually, "I let you read about the history of our clan, what insight have you gained? Come, tell grandfather." Grandfather. The boy first greeted, before saying, "I have had many gains these last few days, I have learned much." "Oh. Tell me." The old man asked in curiosity. "Looking at history, I realized that there is one universal law in this world, that is, to kill." The boy said calmly. "Kill?" The old man frowned, he replied in a grim tone, "Explain it to me." "Yes." The boy continued, "When we are hungry and need food for our bellies, we kill prey. When we have enemies, we kill our enemies and eliminate the threat. When the world is peaceful, the ruler will kill his meritorious subjects to gain authority and control." The boy said slowly, he did not notice that the old man's frown was getting deeper. The boy continued, "Throughout history, it is a case of you killing me, and me killing you. What is a hero? They are someone who has killed the most enemies. What is a loser? They are someone who could not kill their opponent and got killed instead." Actually, even though kill is a word, it has very deep meaning behind it. How to kill? Should one use goo worms and do it themselves, or hire other goo masters to accomplish the deed? Sometimes, we cannot kill outright, because that would attract trouble, so we choose to assassinate. There are many forms of assassination, for example. Enough. The old man bellowed, in his anger, he smashed the cup on the ground. The fragments shot past the boy's face as a wound was created, blood flowed slowly. The old man stood up, pointing at the boy, shouting in anger, "I let you study and read, it is for you to admire the achievements of our clan's ancestors, and learn about the glorious history of our clan. I want you to learn about courtesy and integrity, I want you to understand the glory of the righteous path. And you actually learned about killing? What sort of twisted logic is this? You are confined for a month, stay in the house and reflect upon your mistake." "Yes, grandfather." The boy replied, he spoke softly, but there was a stubborn light in his eyes. The gray fog moved, as the scene changed again. Several years later, the boy was already a rank 1 Goo master. I finally refined hidden aura Goo today, I will give grandfather a shock by hiding in the study room. The youngster sneaked into the room. No, I am only a rank 1 Goo master, while grandfather is rank 4. It is very easy for him to find me. I should hide behind the secret door, in the hidden tunnel, and jump out to scare grandfather later. The youngster changed his mind, he opened the secret door and hid behind it. Not long after, he heard a commotion. He did not dare to open the secret door, he could only listen to the voices. 2 people walked into the study room. His grandfather walked with heavy and hurried steps, he was furious. This traitorous son. He really wants to rebel. He wants to harm his father. The old clan leader was enraged, he slammed the table and caused a huge impact. "Clan leader, the evidence is conclusive. News that you have obtained an 80-year lifespan Goo has already spread out. It is confirmed that young clan leader wants to harm you." A hoarse voice could be heard. The youngster could recognize instantly that this was a certain clan elder, the personal aide of the clan leader. Humph. This traitorous son, he wants to seize my authority, how can that be possible? The clan leader shouted. "Clan leader, there are many higher-ups supporting young clan leader." The hoarse voice said again. There was a brief silence. The youngster's grandfather's voice said solemnly, "My son's influence is not to be underestimated. If we suppress him openly, not only will our reputation in the righteous path be damaged, there will be internal strife that would weaken the clan. Go and prepare, we will strike first and find a chance to assassinate him. Once he is dead, as long as we kill this traitorous son, the other clan elders will have no choice but to give up. Clan leader is wise." Behind the secret door, in the hidden tunnel, the youngster covered his mouth, his entire body was shivering intensely. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1014, Food Path Inheritance. Chapter 1014, Food Path Inheritance. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Tai Bai Yunxing carried Fang Yuan as he sprinted and escaped. He Lulan took one final look at the grey fog. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's pitiful childhood made He Lulan feel a sense of understanding due to her similar experience. For some reason, the Grand Tribulation, Earth collapse, did not affect them. Tai Bai Yunxing and He Lulan made use of this chance to escape, running away while feeling shock and joy. The 10 extreme formation was in its critical moment. It could not restrict the surroundings. Tai Bai Yunxing and He Lulan escaped very easily. Soon, the Battle of Tian Mountain was thrown to the back of their minds. In a few minutes, they could no longer see the grey clouds in the sky. Fang Yuan, wake up. He Lulan slapped Fang Yuan's face, but he was not responding, he was sound asleep. Without Fang Yuan's fixed immortal travel, they could not leave southern border. Unless they crossed the regional walls. But that would cause too much losses. Gu immortals from northern plains. A voice could be heard from afar. Next, 3 southern border Gu immortals landed. Seeing He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing in a pathetic state full of injuries, the leading Gu immortal was shocked. Looking at your injuries, did you come from Tian Mountain? Speak. What actually happened there? Tai Bai Yunxing had an expression of wariness. He Lulan smiled coldly. You want to know what happened, go there and see for yourselves. The 3 southern border Gu immortals snorted. They did not have high cultivation level. They were here to investigate because the Gu immortal experts of their respective clans had gone to Tian Mountain and lost all traces of communication with them. No matter which super force it was, they were very concerned about the ownership of graceful chaotic dual stage. Furthermore, He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing's auras were very weak. They were covered in injuries and were not in their best condition. We are asking you to speak, you had better obey us. Northern Plains Gu immortals coming to southern border and still acting so arrogantly. Attack. Take down the 3 of them. Thus, a battle occurred out of nowhere. And in Tian Mountain's battlefield, the grey fog was still spreading. The situation was in a stalemate. No matter how hard the Heavenly Court Gu immortals tried, they could not go out of their phantom form. Yingwu Xia and Bo Qing were all immobilized on the ground because of earth collapse. Waves of grey fog coiled around immortal zombie Bo Qing as they shined with bright lights, showing constantly changing scenes. These were Mo Yao's memories. As a variant human, she had suffered a fate of being ostracized. Speaking of which, it was strange, Bo Qing's immortal zombie body actually had Mo Yao's remnant soul. What happened in the past to Bo Qing during his tribulation was unknown. But Mo Yao, who was now present, had to endure the attack, because her remnant soul was in the grey fog. The most painful memories in her mind was drawn out. Humph. Immortal zombie Bo Qing snickered. Facing these sad traumas in her life, Mo Yao's remnant soul showed her strong-willed personality. Strange, why are you unaffected by the grey fog? Bo Qing looked at Yingwu Xia who was beside him. Yingwu Xia was staring at Bo Qing's grey fog intently. I don't know. Yingwu Xia shook his head. He pointed, yours is pretty interesting. Bo Qing snorted, it seems that because you were just born, and only have 18 hours to live, you had no time to experience these things. Saying this, Bo Qing's face was full of worries. The Myriad tribulation grey memory was not a threat to Yingwu Xia. That was because he was too young, he did not have much life experience. But it was a completely different story for Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. This second Myriad tribulation is truly vicious. Once you are within the grey fog, not only are your past traumas revealed, the deepest emotions in your mind will be drawn out, you will experience the emotions that you once felt. My memories have already caused me to feel upset. If the recollection was on my lover, I might. If I am already this affected by it, then for Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, who has had a longer life and much more experience, how would he deal with it? Thinking about this, Mo Yao's remnant soul looked up by moving the immortal zombie body. Inside the gray fog, Spectral Soul was like a tall mountain, he was unmoving, like a dormant volcano. Surrounding him, the gray fog was rumbling, countless rainbow lights were shining. This fog showed all kinds of images. Spectral Soul had already become a Gu immortal. Inside Earth Abyss. Youngster, you want to obtain my inheritance? In the darkness, two eyes shined brightly like lanterns. Yes. The Gu immortal spoke concisely. He wore a black robe with messy shoulder-length hair, his expression was cold, bright light shined in his eyes from time to time. He, ha ha ha. In the darkness, a crazed laugh could be heard, it got louder and louder, it caused one's eardrums to tremble. After a while, the laughter stopped. It seems you have made your decision. Then this is your inheritance test. Roar. Following a loud roar, a strange beast came out of the darkness. This beast had 4 limbs, its body was covered in scales, it had a crocodile's head. Its huge crocodile-like mouth had sharp teeth inside, they were shining with cold light, like blades of daggers. Above its head, it had 2 curly dragon horns. But from its body, there was the aura of a Gu immortal. Evidently, this was a Beastman Gu immortal. Beastmen were a type of variant human. In history, they were the most targeted during the era of the 3 demon venerables. Who could have thought that Spectral Soul encountered a Beastman Gu immortal during his life? This Beastman Gu immortal with dragon horns and a crocodile's head opened his mouth, biting at the Gu immortal soul. But Gu immortal Spectral Soul did not dodge or evade. The Beastman bit, tearing apart Spectral Soul's arm. Blood spewed out. Crack, crack. The Beastman chewed, under the grinding of his sharp teeth, Spectral Soul's arm was torn to shreds, blood oozed out of the space between his teeth, flowing everywhere. Gulp, the Beastman swallowed, sending the blood and flesh, along with the bones, down its throat. Delicious. I have not eaten such fresh food in a long time. The Beastman Gu immortal shouted, pouncing again. Spectral Soul did not retreat, he allowed him to continue biting. The Beastman Gu immortal quickly ate his other arm, and his 2 legs, devouring them. Assaulted by intense pain, Spectral Soul was expressionless, he did not even frown at all. Instead, the Beastman Gu immortal showed some shock on his face. You are different from those previous people. The Beastman Gu immortal stopped eating, he assessed Spectral Soul as he spoke with a tone of praise, you have no emotion of fear at all. You know, I invented Food Path, I did a lot of research on eating. Many people wanted to obtain my inheritance, they allowed me to eat them, they looked very tough on the outside with no expression, but they were filled with pain and fear on the inside. Don't think that emotions can be concealed so easily. Actually, this kind of flesh tastes sour and disgusting, it is not delicious at all, I can tell when I eat it. Then, is my flesh delicious? Spectral Soul asked. The Beastman Gu immortal frowned, he spoke, honestly speaking, your flesh feels cold, your bones are too tough, they are not delicious. They taste like the icicles that I ate during my childhood, when I was hunted down by you humans in frozen lands while escaping in hunger. But forget it. Ha ha ha, I have been trapped here, I have not eaten anything fresh in a long time. How can I not be satisfied with this? Furthermore, what I love eating most are the heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys, they are my favorites, ha ha ha. Lad, you want to obtain my inheritance, there is a price to pay. Don't die at the last moment. Saying this, the Beastman Gu immortal scratched, tearing open Spectral Soul's stomach, pulling out his large and small intestines. Next, in front of Spectral Soul, he sucked them into his mouth, crying out that they were delicious. Spectral Soul had a pale face, but his expression was still cold, as if those were not his intestines. Deep in the Beastman Gu immortal's eyes, there was a flash of panic. He cackled, brandishing his claws, pointing at Spectral Soul's chest. Next, I will eat your lungs, you have to endure it. What can I not endure? Spectral Soul smiled coldly. In this special environment, even if I am eaten until only my head is left, I can still grow back. And by then, I would obtain your inheritance. After that, you would lose all value to me, you should worry about yourself. The Beastman Gu Immortal's movements froze for a second, he went into a rage, his eyes were spewing fire. Lad. You talk big. I want to see how long you can endure this for. He purposely moved slowly, causing friction in Spectral Soul's body, making him feel that his intestines and organs were being held, and his bones were being scratched, to try to generate fear and panic in him. The Beastman Gu Immortal took out Spectral Soul's organs and ate them one by one. In front of him, he opened his mouth from time to time, letting Spectral Soul see the miserable state of his organs that were crushed to bits. Spectral Soul's calm expression slowly changed, turning into one of interest. The Beastman Gu Immortal saw this gaze and had a change of expression. What are you thinking of? I find it interesting. I am eating your flesh, I am eating your organs, you find it interesting? The Beastman Gu Immortal looked at Spectral Soul with a disbelieving expression. Of course, eating is natural in this world, but on the other side of eating, there is killing. We eat meat, we have to hunt. When we eat vegetables, we have to uproot them, that is also killing. Even if we eat nothing but wind and drink nothing but water, we are still swallowing and digesting them. All in all, eating is killing. Of course, killing is not just eating, thus, your food path is inferior to my killing path. I have eaten many things, but I have never been eaten by another individual. You are eating me now, that is the same as killing me. Similarly, I have killed many life forms, but I have never been slowly killed by anyone else. This allowed me to understand the feeling of being killed, it is a form of enjoyment. Those who kill have to be prepared to be killed. Simply by killing others, I cannot fully comprehend killing. Thank you for letting me comprehend the deeper meaning in killing. The Beastman Gu Immortal heard this and opened his eyes wide, he looked at Spectral Soul like he was seeing a nightmare, a monster. Cold sweat began to form on his head. He felt that he could not swallow the young man in front of him anymore. He gulped, feeling that his throat was blocked. Lad. I will eat your upper body now, let's see how arrogant you can be. The Beastman Gu Immortal shouted, devouring with a frenzied gaze, his eyes were reddened. Soon, Gu Immortal Spectral Soul had only his head left. Seeing this, all of the Heavenly Court Gu Immortals, along with Immortal Zombie Bo Qing and Ning Wuxia, were silent. Even though he only had a head left, Gu Immortal Spectral Soul was still calm and at peace. This, what sort of willpower? Heavenly Court's Gu Immortals were lost for words. Earlier, the Heavenly Court Gu Immortal who was very confident of the Myriad tribulation gray memory saw this and his expression turned dark, he lost his confidence. But at this moment, the Beastman Gu Immortal laughed wildly. He laughed in an insane manner, he was so happy, tears were flowing out of his eyes. It was filled with a tone of mockery. Ha ha ha, you were deceived, but don't be upset, you are the 270th person who was deceived. Ha ha ha. Spectral Soul's gaze flashed, is this inheritance fake? Of course it is real. Back then, I cultivated to rank 8, Barbarian Jiu Lai tried to trap me instead of killing me, he was after my food path, humph. I could not beat him, but he could not obtain what he wanted so easily either. I established an agreement with him, I would pass the food path inheritance to future humans, but not him. And the inheritor must endure my eating test. After making the agreement, I have been trapped here, many humans came here in order to pass the test, to obtain knowledge of food path. But even Barbarian Jiu Lai could not understand my true ability. He, my entire body is full of food path Dao marks, I have reached a level that has never been achieved by anyone before me. I can consume rocks and wind to fill my stomach. I can even consume goo worms to increase the Dao marks on me. I ate Dao marks non-stop, and finally, after 1,000 years, I broke the agreement that we had made. Ha ha ha. So do you get it? Next, I will eat your head and turn you into my nutrients and nourish me, to allow me to recover. Don't worry, I will remember you, you are one of the most unique among the pitiful people that I have eaten. So that is it. Spectral Soul still had a plain expression, he was very calm. The Beastman Gu Immortal's expression froze, he grabbed his throat, shouting anxiously, "What is going on? What is going on?" Spectral Soul laughed coldly, "I would never allow another person to determine my life and death. Not to mention an old agreement. You think my flesh is so easy to consume? Every piece of flesh that you eat contains a part of my soul. You are a great expert in food path, but coincidentally, I also have some attainment in soul path." Soul path? When did such a path appear? The splitting of the soul will cause you pain that is immensely higher than the tearing of your flesh. I'll let you know, I am the founder of soul path. As for that bit of pain, only by experiencing it will I enjoy the amazing feeling of killing, isn't that right? Spectral Soul said as the Beastman Gu Immortal's expression turned ashen, he stopped moving. He was dead. His eyes were opened wide, staring at Gu Immortal Spectral Soul. Even though the other party only had his head left. In the Beastman Gu Immortal's eyes, there was only fear. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 10-15, Scenes of Past Events. Chapter 10-15, Scenes of Past Events. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Not only the Beastman Gu Immortal, the Heavenly Court Gu Immortals who saw this also felt immensely fearful. Demon. Demon. This spectral soul is completely crazed, even though there was a cause, he is filled with demonic thoughts, he thinks that nothing cannot be killed, he thinks that the greatest joy is killing, he thinks that the Tao of heaven and earth is essentially killing. No wonder he could become a demon venerable, and cause the greatest bloodshed in the world. Even the pain of tearing his soul apart felt splendid to him. He seems cold and logical, but he is actually crazy to the extreme. Nobody can save him, his mind is incapable of redemption. I have to agree, an invincible mindset is the basis for becoming invincible. He has such a mindset, it is simply demonic, but because of this, his mind will never waver, everything in this world will only reinforce that misconceived ideology. The myriad tribulation gray memory cannot stop him. Even though he is not a demon venerable now, and cannot be physically invincible, he is still mentally invincible. Heavenly Court's Gu Immortals discussed, they were anxious, fearful, disdainful, and filled with hatred, all of these were on their expressions. Chirp, chirp. Just at this moment, in the sky, there was the clear chirping of birds. Heavenly Court's Immortals looked up, feeling great joy. Myriad tribulation. Another myriad tribulation. The myriad tribulation gray memory is not over yet, but another myriad tribulation is on the way already. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable is defying heaven, once he revives, the world would undergo bloodshed again. Heaven would not allow him to do so, thus it caused these immense tribulations. He will definitely not succeed. The chirping of birds became louder and more frequent. The sky was shining with a jade light. Large groups of birds entered a formation and charged down. Myriad tribulation, grand clear space. One of the Heavenly Court Gu Immortals recognized this. They seemed like birds, but it was actually the power of space path. Wherever the flying birds went, space would be cleared out, nothing could exist there, it was a terrifying power that could not be stopped. This is grand clear space. In history, there was a Northern Plains predecessor who failed the tribulation but survived it. With an inspiration, he created the immortal killer move three-winged green bird. His descendants obtained it and had once dominated Northern Plains. That's right, this is the tribulation. Under the expectant gazes of Heavenly Court's Gu Immortals, the jade flying birds flew down, circling around Spectral Soul. Wherever the flying birds went, long and deep wounds were formed, as if they were sharp blades. Wounds soon formed all over Spectral Soul's body, it was a terrible sight. Spectral Soul had no reaction, but Ing Wuxia was screaming on the ground. Immortal Zombie Bo Qing was also showing nervousness on his face. The gray fog surrounded Spectral Soul, its power was seemingly causing him to dwell in his memories. A vast amount of rainbow fog that was thousands of meters tall rumbled in the surrounding 100 li, countless scenes were shown, they displayed Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's rich life experiences in front of everyone. Suddenly, behind Spectral Soul's head, rainbow fog expanded, forming a huge veil that pushed away all of the surrounding scenes. In the image, there was an abundance of green light. This was a green heaven fragment world of the immemorial 9 heavens. A group of Gu masters were inside fighting with a group of Featherman Gu immortals. Spectral Soul, who was still a Gu immortal, was also among them. He wore a black robe and had black hair that swayed with the wind. Killing intent was oozing. "Humans, you are too much." The Featherman Gu immortal leader cried out, throwing out an immortal Gu house. It was Sacred Feather City. More than 10 Featherman Gu immortals flew into Sacred Feather City, as the city burst out with a glorious light. The human Gu immortals could not beat them, they were utterly defeated. Gu immortal Spectral Soul was unable to resist the might of the immortal Gu house. He was heavily injured, barely surviving. Next, the scene vanished, turning into countless smaller fragmented images. Tens of thousands of images surrounded Spectral Soul, encircling him tightly, almost without any gaps. All of the experiences in his life, as long as there were emotions in them, they were shown. Everyone was watching with dazed expressions. They could not keep up with the number of scenes. Spectral Soul's entire life was condensed endlessly. Everyone could see that he walked further and further on the demonic path. His killing nature also intensified, as his cultivation level rose. A huge screen of fog was formed, pushing away the surrounding images again. The position was at Spectral Soul's left leg. Seeing this, the immortals had an understanding. The larger the scene that came from the rainbow fog, the more variation there was in Spectral Soul's emotions at the time. Thus, the moment the scene started, everyone's attention was drawn. This was a silver-white space. It was the location of a Thieving Heaven true inheritance. Gu immortal Spectral Soul barged in. Arrogance could be felt from his expression. He spoke to himself, "Thieving Heaven, even though you were a demon venerable, you are already dead. Why don't you leave your inheritance to me?" However, the Thieving Heaven true inheritances were left for otherworldly demons. Gu immortal Spectral Soul was not an otherworldly demon. He was not qualified to inherit it. He tried all kinds of methods, but he ended up spitting out blood. His expression was pale as he returned empty-handed. When Spectral Soul became a demon venerable, he dominated the world, slaughtering the masses. He stood on a peak. His hair was white as snow. Looking afar, looking at a field of corpses, looking at the perishing life forms. This was recorded in human history. Spectral Soul destroyed a certain super force and slaughtered over 10 million people just to obtain lifespan Gu. He played with the lifespan Gu in his hands, while his expression was perplexed. He looked over the scenery, muttering to himself, "Heaven, if you want to kill us, why did you create us?" Even though he had strength that was invincible in the world, he was perplexed. His killing path could not explain this. Another huge screen of fog appeared. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable came to a Thieving Heaven true inheritance space, the same place he had once went to in his youth. Thieving Heavens will formed in front of him. Anyone who can become a venerable has an outstanding aspect. I hope you can be magnanimous and leave this true inheritance for a fated person. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's hands were behind his back. He had a cold expression. When I was young, I had desired everything in here. But now, I have already obtained my Tao. No matter how precious the things are here, they are of no attraction to me. I came here because I have a question. Thieving Heavens will smiled. I understand. Those who have reached our heights will have questions about heaven and earth. How about this? I will share my experiences with you, as a reference. Okay. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable nodded. Thieving Heavens will continued. You might already know, I am not from this world. I am what you would call an otherworldly demon. The world I came from is different from here in both its foundation and scenery. To me, I am only a traveler here. I want to go home. I have strived over my whole life for that goal. My real name is Ben Jia Sun. In my original appearance, I had blonde hair and blue eyes. Before coming here, I had a beautiful fiancée. We were preparing to get married. I had a high status in society. That was because I was a mecha operator. Mecha? Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's eyes were shining with deep interest. Even though he had traveled over the 5 regions, this was the first time he was hearing about other worlds. Mecha, you can think of it as a puppet, or a suit of armor. A human stays inside and manipulates it to unleash immense battle strength. Thieving Heavens will explain vaguely. A moment later, another scene appeared. Within 88 True Yang building. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable held Giant Sun's true inheritance, looking at it as he sighed deeply. This possession method can extend lifespan, but possessing a body using the soul is only a desperate method. Death is still unavoidable. To extend one's lifespan Gu is the best option. The path of a Gu immortal is filled with calamities and tribulations. It is hard for the body to resist them, and it is hard for the soul to exist independently. The maintenance of longevity means the defiance of heaven. It is hard. Giant Sun, oh Giant Sun, even if you created 88 True Yang building and attempted to plunder the lifespan Gu in northern plains. But Heaven's will is vicious. Fewer and fewer lifespan Gu are being produced. Even if you obtain all of the lifespan Gu in the world, so what? Heaven's will dictates the production of lifespan Gu. To live a long life, the crucial thing is Heaven's will. At the River of Time. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable stood in the air, looking at a red lotus that was floating on the river's surface. His entire body was emitting a thick darkness that was corroding the red lotus. Eventually, after exerting all his efforts, he successfully left a ghost face on the surface of the red lotus. Throughout history, the most mysterious red lotus demon venerable. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable sighed, his face was full of fatigue as his eyes shined brightly. I want to know, why did you purposely stop and leave behind the heavily injured Fate Immortal Gu? A long time passed. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's expression was mixed with shock and bafflement. He muttered. Star Constellation Immortal Venerable truly made a deep scheme. So only a complete otherworldly demon can thoroughly destroy fate. Even Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable is only half an otherworldly demon. He is similar to the immortal killer Move Soul replacement that I created. His soul is from another world, but his body was born here. I want to extend my lifespan. I have to defy heaven, and go against heaven's will. Unfortunately, heaven's will has no soul. I cannot kill it. Maybe with the help of this red lotus true inheritance, I can become half an otherworldly demon. In a dark secret room. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable sat on the ground. There were countless Gu formations in front of him. Inside the Gu formation, there were countless corpses, including men, women, young and old, and all sorts of variant humans. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable had disheveled hair now, his hands and body were covered in blood, he was skinny like a skeleton, his eyes were deeply swollen, but they were shining with brilliant light. He was staring at a book fixedly. The Legends of Renzu. The Legends of Renzu, the Legends of Renzu, to think that I only truly comprehended you today. You are an exposition of human path, you are the true inheritance left behind by Renzu. With methods of human path, I can create a completely new body. After soul replacement, I will become half an otherworldly demon. Maybe not just that, I can still. It is a pity. It is too late, it is too late. I am heavily injured beyond treatment, death is approaching me. Seeing this, Heavenly Court's Gu immortals were deeply in shock. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable was invincible in the world, but he actually died from injuries. Who hurt him? Or did he injure himself after testing out human path methods? The Myriad tribulation grand clear space was still continuing. More than half of Spectral Soul's 1,000 arms were already chopped off by the jade flying birds. His body was covered in wounds, but he was not resisting at all. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1016, Over a Long Time. Chapter 1016, Over a Long Time. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. There was another scene. Inside the door of life and death. In Obsession Death Domain. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable had no body, what was displayed was the soul with 3 heads and 1,000 arms. He looked at his appearance in the lake, muttering to himself, very good. I created a method of soul devouring based on food path. It not only let me return to my peak condition, I could even devour the souls of other Gu immortals to obtain their memories and cultivation experience over their lives. Is this a blessing in disguise? But from start to finish, I did not find the souls of any other immortal venerables or demon venerables. I can understand why Star Constellation is not here. Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable is not here too. Did he return home successfully? It is time to return to the world of the living. Without Dang Hun Mountain and Luo Pa Valley obstructing me, it is much easier for me to get out of the door of life and death compared to Renzu. But my main body cannot move out yet. I should send out some split souls to pave the way for my main body. Humph. When I regain control of the world, I will deal with you. Spectral Soul looked at a special soul. He was sleeping soundly, his body was emitting a golden luster, he was like a sun that had sunken into a lake. In the following scene, there was no spectral soul, but 7 mortals instead. We can see the light of day again, this is amazing. Among the 7 people, one looked up at the sky. Even though we are now mortals, we have our main body's cultivation experiences, we can definitely become Gu immortals. Due to the obstruction of Reverse Flow River, only 7 of us made it out, even though there were 10 at the start. It is going to take some effort to let our main body come out. If anyone finds out, it will be troublesome. They will not sit around and watch. To play it safe, we should separate and develop in all 5 regions secretly. We will communicate once in a while. In that case, why don't we create an organization to deceive the masses? That's true, let's call it Shadow Sect. We will be as unnoticed as shadows, yet we are everywhere. One day, the entire world will be shrouded in our shadows. Alright, the 7 of us will be called red, orange, yellow, green, azure, blue, and purple. Like 7 of the immemorial heavens, we have once stood at the peak, but have now fallen. This is to warn ourselves that we cannot be lazy or complacent. Sword Immortal Bo Ching is actually a split soul of Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals cried out. Among them, an old woman said in shame, there is no denying it with the evidence in front of us. My Spirit Affinity House is at fault for failing to investigate properly. The methods of a demon venerable are almost impossible to defend against. Even in Heavenly Court, his split soul spies were lurking here, not to mention Spirit Affinity House. It was fortunate that Tower Lord noticed it and used Heaven Overseeing Tower to expose these shocking secrets, that gave us the chance to stop this terrifying demon. Heavenly Court's Gu Immortal exclaimed. In this situation, even though they could not do anything, Spectral Soul's condition was not good either. Ever since Grey Memory descended, Spectral Soul had been standing still, allowing the Myriad Tribulation Grand clear space to assault him. He was already covered in countless injuries. Azure. On the ground, Mo Yao's remnant soul, who was inside Bo Qing's immortal zombie body, felt deep emotions as she saw the young and handsome Azure in the image. Around her, grey fog rumbled as a scene in the depths of her memory was shown. All around there were ruins, there were countless mangled corpses lying on the bloody ground. There seemed to have been an intense battle earlier. Husband! Don't die, you cannot die. If you die, how will I live without you? Mo Yao hugged Sword Immortal Bo Qing as she sobbed helplessly. Bo Qing held Mo Yao's hands weakly. At this point, I will not conceal it from you. I am from Shadow Sect, I am a split soul of Spectral Soul Demon Venerable. You loved the wrong person, loving me will only cause you pain and hardship. Go, leave, if not, it will be too late. Mo Yao's body shook, she shook her head as she rejected him firmly. No, I will not go. I don't care about your identity, I only know that we love each other deeply, that is the most important thing. I don't care about anything else. If I cannot live together with you, I will die with you. Oh, oh, oh. Ing Wu Xia watched from the side, he showed a curious and shocked expression. Grey fog rumbled continuously, the scenes around Spectral Soul became more and more chaotic. Earlier, it was from Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's perspective, but now, they were from the perspectives of 7 people. These 7 only inherited a small portion of his foundation, they had their own difficulties and pains. Once in a while, Spectral Soul's main body would send out more split souls from Obsession Death Domain, traveling through Reverse Flow River. This made the scenes even more chaotic now. However, the largest image still attracted everyone's attention the most. 6 members of Shadow Sect gathered together. They were the first batch that had left the door of life and death, they were all immortals now. It was my mistake. Green spoke. If I did not ask Azure to teach that unscrupulous merchant in Treasure Yellow Heaven a lesson, Azure would not have fallen into the trap of love and betrayed us, even our main body was exposed. This is not your fault, Green. Purple consoled, these are traps and difficulties created by Heaven's will. Haven't you all noticed? It was faint when we were still mortals, but as our cultivation level rise, our lives also have become more filled with difficulties, nothing is going smoothly. Anything we do will cause unnecessary consequences, there are problems everywhere. We have to settle Azure's matter quickly, otherwise, our main body's plan will be obstructed. What should we do? Azure cultivates sword path and his battle strength is the highest. Do we need to gather our strength and jointly eliminate him? It is possible, but the price is huge, and the risk is high. I have a plan. If it succeeds, we might be able to turn Fairy Mo Yao over to our side. Purple said slowly. Oh. What plan? Purple smiled. The reason why Azure fell into the trap of love was because Spirit Affinity House used their signature immortal goo, love. This goo is rank 9, its might is nigh unstoppable, thus Azure fell prey to it, it is not his fault. After all, his sword path is not complete yet, he cannot resist such attacks. But coincidentally, I had some enlightenment today, my wisdom path attainment level reached Great Grandmaster. Because we have been keeping in contact, I have a deep understanding towards Azure's sword path. After he got into trouble, I have been deducing on how to solve this problem. I deduced an immortal goo recipe, it can create wisdom sword immortal goo. Wisdom sword immortal goo. Purple nodded, that's right, wisdom sword can cut the threads of love, even if this goo cannot rival rank 9 love goo, in actuality, we just need to cut away the Dao marks from love goo on Azure's body. We can make it such that Azure obtains a fortuitous encounter and thinks he created this new immortal goo recipe himself. Once he uses it, the love threads on his body will be cut, he will regain his reasoning and become one of us again. Not just that, since Mo Yao still has those love threads, we can use them to turn her over to our side. Purple's words made everyone overjoyed, they praised. Brilliant. Brilliant plan. Haha, worthy of a wisdom path goo immortal like Purple. What? Seeing this, immortal zombie Bo Qing, who was on the ground, frowned deeply. Mo Yao's remnant soul, which was inside the body, knew that her lover had created wisdom sword immortal goo himself. Then, after that, did Azure deceive my feelings, or did he still love me? At once, Mo Yao's remnant soul shook, she was filled with doubts. But at this time, another scene was portrayed around Spectral Soul. Shadow Sect's 7 immortals gathered. As long as I become a venerable, even without our main body, I can be unrivaled and dominate the world. By then, with such invincible strength, even heavens may not be able to deal with me. At the least, there are still many lifespan goo in this era. Azure raised his head, speaking with an arrogant tone. Don't look down on heaven's will. Green said solemnly, the lesson that we have learned over these years, isn't it enough? Purple, you are our advisor, what do you think? Yellow asked. Purple looked at Azure. After Azure's first failure, it seems that as long as we prepare amply and deal with any mishaps, there aren't big problems. How is Fairy Mo Yao? He. Azure laughed coldly, that silly woman, she is prepared to sacrifice herself for me. She went to 88 True Yang building to refine Calamity beckoning immortal goo. She wants to draw the Myriad tribulation over to herself when I undergo the tribulation. Purple shook his head, even though Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's luck path is quite innovative, Mo Yao's method will not succeed. But since she has the intention to do so, why don't you hand change soul immortal goo and that immortal killer move over to her? If you fail the tribulation, as long as your soul is intact, you will still have a foundation, you can start over rapidly again. It is better to prepare amply. Azure nodded expressionlessly. This scene made immortal zombie Bo Qing's body shake intensely. Wu Xie felt something amiss. He quickly said, "Don't overthink it, this is a myriad tribulation, it might not be real." Immortal zombie Bo Qing did not speak, he was silent as a rock, he clenched his fists as his muscles tensed, his eyes were shut tight. 5 of the immortals from Shadow Sect were gathered again. Blue failed. He used his own immortal aperture infused with the immemorial blue heaven fragment, in order to research heaven's will, but he has already fallen deep into the dream realm. Yellow said with deep pain. The immortals were silent. A long while later, Purple said, "Even though blue can be saved, I think we should not attempt it hastily. This is a trap left by heaven's will, in order for our members to get exposed." Sigh. We can tell after Azure failed his second attempt to ascend to rank 9. The power of that tribulation was more than 10 times as much as the first. Evidently, Heaven's will does not want us to become venerables, it is trying to deal with us at all times. I will not hide it from you, I have recently had a bad feeling. First Azure, then Blue, I am afraid the next one is me. The immortals were shocked, they quickly said, "Purple, don't overthink it." I am not overthinking, this is the prediction of a wisdom path Gu Immortal. After I am gone, Gu Immortal Dali will take over my position. Also, the power of Heaven's will is higher than our estimations, but it is not impossible to deceive. From now on, Shadow Sect will lay low, accumulating our strength in secret. When we perform the heaven-defying deed, we should go all out at once, so that Heaven's will has no time to react to our actions. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1017, Deep Scheme. Chapter 1017, Deep Scheme. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. On a larger image. Green, hurry go. Yellow grabbed Green's hand, pulling him outwards. No, I will not leave. It can still be saved, look at the immortal fetus Gu, it is still alive. Green screamed, struggling, let me go, that is my entire life's work. You think this explosion is simply an accident? Look at the remaining rank 8 immortal materials, take a good look at them. Yellow called out furiously. Green's body shook, clarity returned to his eyes, he had a realization, his forehead was covered in sweat as he said with lingering fear, these immortal materials are all full of Heaven's will. That was so close, a moment ago, my sense of reasoning was influenced by Heaven's will. Even after setting up this huge formation and hiding in Northern Plains Earth Trench, I was still noticed by it. Only a complete otherworldly demon can be fully undetected by Heaven's will. Us being discovered is nothing to be discouraged over. Give up on this attempt, we will start over again. Yellow consoled. Green was speechless, looking at the sandy area around him, he nodded solemnly. I've already told you, your deduction is completely wrong, I have nothing to do with Red Lotus true inheritances. Gu Immortal Dali said helplessly. The opposing time path Gu Immortal was shrouded in fog, their appearance could not be seen. Only the red lotus marking on their forehead was visible, bright and red. They smiled coldly, I used the time path method in Red Lotus true inheritance to deduce, how can that be wrong? Red Lotus Demon Venerable's next true inheritance is with you. Dali was silently before replying, there is nothing else to say, let's fight. Saying this, he charged ahead. You finally stopped evading. The mysterious Gu Immortal was filled with intent to fight. After a long battle, Gu Immortal Dali could not defeat the other party, he was suppressed by the Immortal Gu House, graceful chaotic duel stage. The Myriad tribulation grand clear space finally ended. Spectral Soul did not put up any resistance, his entire body was hurt by the countless green birds, his mass had shrunk by 1/3. At the same time, Heaven Overseeing Tower was prepared to strike, it seemed to be close to getting out of its phantom form. The surrounding gray fog had dissipated by half. This meant that the Myriad tribulation, gray memory, was already half over. But the tribulations from the skies still continued. Another Myriad tribulation was gathering on top of Spectral Soul's head. It seemed that as long as Spectral Soul was still alive, Heaven's will would not let him off. Myriad tribulation, dark oil poison. From the sky, drops of sticky poisonous oil dripped down. The oil seemed to be boiling hot. When they landed on Spectral Soul's body, there was a sizzling noise as smoke rose. The oil entered the wounds created earlier, flowing in and corroding Spectral Soul's body. An intense process of rotting was occurring inside. Soon, the poisonous oil turned from drops to streams. Countless streams were raining down from the sky, over the surroundings. Spectral Soul's huge body was bathed in poisonous oil. It was rotting at an observable rate. His body mass was shrinking rapidly. But he did not do anything. Xianxia, who was below, had an anxious expression. He wanted to call out, but he was in the Grand Tribulation Earth collapse. Any movement or intense thinking would cause him to sink further. What is wrong with you guys? Both of you are acting like this. He grumbled, looking at immortal zombie Bo Qing beside him. From the start, immortal zombie Bo Qing was like a statue, not moving. It was as if he was dead. He was unmoved by anything outside. Thankfully, they were below Spectral Soul's feet. Being covered by Spectral Soul's body which was above the clouds, the myriad tribulation did not cause any harm to Xianxia or immortal zombie Bo Qing. A very far distance away, He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng were assisting each other as they escaped. Behind them, a group of southern border Gu immortals were chasing them. The xenophobia of the 5 regions Gu immortals was quite strong. Even in the most open Eastern Sea, foreign Gu immortals did not have an easy time. They were often ostracized and bullied by Eastern Sea Gu immortals. In the earlier battle, after He Lulan nearly killed a southern border Gu immortal, the situation became uncontrollable. The southern border Gu immortals flew into a rage. These northern plains outsiders were so arrogant in bullying them. Not only did they fight in southern border, they injured them. Where did they think they were? Thus, the chasing continued. Not just that, they even gathered their allies and reinforcements. He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng were not in good condition to begin with. They were injured. They battled as they retreated. Under their skillful movement, they got farther and farther away from Etian Mountain. No matter how huge He Lulan's ambition was, she did not dare to get close to that place again. That was not the stage for rank 6 Gu immortals. Not even rank 7s, and rank 8s also could only be side characters. That was a battlefield where Spectral Soul and Heaven's will fought. The myriad tribulation dark oil poison had already ended. Spectral Soul was now surrounded by another myriad tribulation. This myriad tribulation was unknown. It had broken the limits of historical records. It was formless and ethereal. Only a mystical aura that could not be perceived was around. The aura coiled around him, causing Spectral Soul's body to explode wherever it went. Spectral Soul was a soul, but it was so condensed it was like material. It was as if it was a soul beast. With the explosions caused by the aura, the huge mountainous body vanished. Only a framework of it was left. Huge pieces of the soul were blasted away. In the gray fog, another scene appeared. Old man Yen Shi coughed blood. He held heavenly secret immortal Gu as he muttered, "So Fang Yuan has spring-autumn cicada. No wonder he could refine fixed immortal travel and go to central continents who immortal blessed land and obtain Dang Hun Mountain. He then destroyed Imperial Court blessed land and caused the collapse of 88 True Yang building. Since he is an otherworldly demon who possesses spring-autumn cicada, he has clearly escaped fate. This can be the best tool against Heaven's will. Fine, I will conceal the tracks of you in Tai Bai Yunsheng, to prevent others from deducing matters about you." Qin Bai Sheng secretly watched the immemorial ruin bat as well as the numerous calamities and tribulations in this area. This was the time when Dongfang Chang Fan had undergone possession and was going through tribulation. Dongfang Chang Fan was merely using possession to revive, but his main body's aura was perceived by Heaven's will, sending such a terrifying disaster. In the future, when our main body tries to revive, the tribulations would likely be worse. The blazing glory lightning brilliance immortal zombie nodded beside him. "We can leave, this test against Heaven's will has ended. Why is Chu Rong not back yet?" At this time, Fairy Jiangyu appeared with a terrible expression. Chu Rong is dead, the operation to take back modest thatched hut failed. What happened? Qin Baisheng was mildly shocked. Chu Rong is a fire path grandmaster with rank 7 cultivation level. It is the inheritor of 3 thatched demon immortal. Fairy Jiangyu said, this person was deeply concealed, his methods were ruthless, I almost failed to make it back. 3 thatched demon immortal. Humph, forget it, we will give up on modest thatched hut. Before the commencement of our crucial plan, we cannot expose our identities over this immortal Gu house and cause heaven's will to attack us in advance. Qin Baisheng thought for a moment and said this. Luo Pavali. Shadow Sect's group faced the central continent Gu immortals with grim expressions. Qin Baisheng stared at Feng Gu, sighing, heaven's will's attack is already here. In order to protect the pawn Fang Yuan, Yanshi concealed his traces. Central continent's Gu immortals investigated Fang Yuan and in following their clues, instead found us. What do we do? Fairy Jiangyu asked. We have no choice but to fight. Qin Baisheng gritted his teeth and said. Cough, cough, cough. Old man Yanshi coughed continuously, his expression was pale, he was so exhausted that it seemed like he would die from being out of breath. I used heavenly secret Gu and consumed 100 years of lifespan. But it was worth it, I deduced that spring-autumn cicada's condition is bad, it has already been used. Seeing that Fang Yuan went to Tian Mountain in advance, he evidently knows about the Battle of Tian Mountain. With this, I can deduce that our main body has already failed once, thus, he had to use that Red Lotus true inheritance to make Fang Yuan rebirth, sending him back to the past to change the future. Heh, thankfully, spring-autumn cicada is only rank 6, it is nothing scary. In that case, Fang Yuan is the best method of measurement. Looking at his future performance, I can deduce even more things. Would searching his soul directly be easier? Or would it affect the entire situation? In accordance to my planning, Bo Qing and 7-Star Child have already slowed down Heavenly Court as much as possible. This result should be a lot better compared to the last time. Old man Yanshi sat in the pavilion, looking at the mountain and fog change mysteriously. On Zombie Alliance's side, the arrangements are set, we can use them as a backup. It would be best to preserve them, sigh, I hope we do not need to use them. Using the newly obtained lifespan Gu, I have about 20 years left. It is time to die. It is natural for my split soul to return to the main body. But before dying, I should help the main body deduce the tribulations of the following heaven-defying plan. A moment later. Cough, 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 I didn't die. This means that I have already deduced all of the tribulations. No, it is because every wisdom path advisor of Shadow Sect, from generation after generation, had been deducing all along, we finally accumulated enough foundation to create a qualitative change. This is so ironic. Using Heavenly Secret Immortal Gu as the core, the Wisdom Path Killer move created can deduce the contents of the tribulations. But this Immortal Gu was created by Paradise Earth. He had tried to get rid of the main body's influence all his life, to think that after dying, he actually provided us such huge help. Seeing this, Heavenly Court's Gu immortals were shocked beyond words. It turned out that Shadow Sect had already deduced the tribulations. That meant it was very suspicious that Spectral Soul was not moving inside the Myriad tribulations. The mysterious Myriad tribulation had gone away, the next Myriad tribulation descended. Vine Dragon Tribulation. Countless green vines with sharp thorns shot out from the sky and ground, coiling around Spectral Soul's body. Soon, millions of vines surrounded Spectral Soul tightly, forming a huge ball. They coiled around him relentlessly, becoming tighter and tighter, stabbing into his body and using the demon Venerable Soul as their nutrients. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. He is doing this on purpose, look at that 10 extreme formation. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals shifted their gazes around as they came to realizations. Because Shadow Sect had deduced the tribulations, they could make arrangements around them. Spectral Soul purposely did not put up resistance because he wanted to fuse his soul path foundation into this formation, as the nutrients for this formation. What is he trying to refine? He actually used his own demonic soul as Gu refinement material. Not just that, with so many myriad tribulations around him, they are actually carving space path, poison path, chi path, and wood path Dao marks on his body, to destroy his soul path Dao marks. They could harm Spectral Soul because these Dao marks were not weaker than the soul path foundation that he had accumulated for the last 100,000 years. Gasp. Sensing this, Heavenly Court's Gu immortals drew in deep and chilling breaths. It seemed that Spectral Soul was not only refining himself, he was even using the power of the myriad tribulations to achieve his goals. But what was his goal? The 10 extreme formation was at the final juncture. In the dark fog, the ball of light was becoming brighter and rounder. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord's heart sank to rock bottom. He had a determined expression. He said solemnly, "We cannot go on like this, we have to ruin Spectral Soul's scheme. No matter what he is refining, we have to destroy this 10 extreme formation. But we are in phantom form. No, we have one chance to retaliate. This is something that generation after generation of Heaven Overseeing Tower Lords have created after researching. It has always been kept as a confidential secret." Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord said. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals heard this and were joyful and surprised. "Why don't you use it?" Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord smiled bitterly. He told them the price for using it. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals fell into deathly silence. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 10:18, Narrow Victory. Chapter 10:18, Narrow Victory. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. A moment later, someone stepped up. "Since Shadow Sect can make sacrifices, why can't we of Heavenly Court do the same? I am willing to stay behind and manipulate Heaven Overseeing Tower. I am willing to. Giving up this body to slay a demon venerable, what reason is there not to?" More and more Gu immortals stood up. Of course, there were Heavenly Court Gu immortals who had other opinions. "In my opinion, the urgent matter now is to find out what Spectral Soul is trying to refine. The matter is not desperate yet, we should preserve our strength until absolutely necessary." Back then, when Spectral Soul Demon Venerable was still alive, he could not take down Heavenly Court. Now that he is dead, he is weaker than during life. What should Heavenly Court fear? Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord waved his hand. "I have decided, those who want to stay will come with me to activate Heaven Overseeing Tower. As for the rest of you, I will send you to White Heaven. Regardless of victory or defeat, you have to gather the remains of the immortal Gu house and return to Heavenly Court." After saying this, Heavenly Court's members came to an agreement. Heaven Overseeing Tower shot out a bright light towards the sky, before a beam of light descended from the sky, covering the entirety of Heaven Overseeing Tower. Spectral Soul was startled. He tried to control Heaven Overseeing Tower, preventing it from getting out of its phantom form. But Heaven Overseeing Tower was not being manipulated to get out of its phantom form. In fact, its final attack required it to stay in phantom form the entire time. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord's voice resounded over the surroundings. "Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, I will show you the newest and most powerful attack of Heaven Overseeing Tower." Boom! With a loud sound, the surrounding scenery had a subtle change. The myriad tribulation, Vine Dragon, was coiling around Spectral Soul's body, but now, under the control of Heaven Overseeing Tower, it changed targets and attacked the 10 extreme formation instead. Spectral Soul's expression changed. Heaven Overseeing Tower's attack was beyond his expectations. Even though he had planned for tens of thousands of years, and deduced it countless times, expending the lives of many generations of wisdom path Gu immortals. His entire plan had been deduced and refined, deduced and perfected. But he did not deduce that Heaven Overseeing Tower had a method to manipulate the myriad tribulation directly. What sort of method was this? An intense aura burst out. Spectral Soul stopped being motionless. He quickly used his methods to resist the attacks of the countless vines. He had experienced many myriad tribulations. To complete the mysterious immortal Gu in the 10 extreme formation, his battle strength had already been severely lowered. But right now, he attacked at full strength, his demonic might was overwhelming, it gave off an unstoppable feeling. Even though more than half of the soul path Dao marks on his body were gone, he was still shining with the light of Dao marks. They were bright and numerous like the stars in the sky. An unimaginable clash. One side controlled the Myriad tribulation to attack, while the other's soul changed into countless forms to defend against the vines. Even though he was alone, even though he only had his soul left, Spectral Soul showed incredible capabilities in battle that almost resembled a miracle. He blocked all of the vine dragons coming his way. The 10 extreme formation was tightly defended by him, nothing could go through. Heaven Overseeing Tower, still in phantom form, was disassembling. The speed got faster and faster, the countless mortal goo and immortal goo that formed Heaven Overseeing Tower were facing destruction every minute and second. In Heaven Overseeing Tower, every few breaths of time, one rank 8 Heavenly Court Goo immortal died, sacrificing themselves. In order to control the Myriad tribulation, Heavenly Court had paid a huge price. The same went for Spectral Soul. His main body was already heavily injured. To resist the Vine Dragon Myriad tribulation, his soul was diminishing rapidly, it was as fast as a deflating balloon. The aura that was all over the place had weakened. His overwhelming demonic might seemed to have turned from a forest fire to a pile of bonfire. Spectral Soul, you transgress against heaven, you will die like a dog. Before dying, Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord shouted his final curse. Around him, all of the Heavenly Court Goo immortals were dead. With a loud bang, the remaining half of Heaven Overseeing Tower broke apart, turning into countless fragments. The fragments turned back into mortal goo and immortal goo, following the beam of light, penetrating the heavenly wind chi wall to go deep into White Heaven. The Heavenly Court Goo immortals who were left behind to guard White Heaven rapidly moved and collected the immortal goo. Most importantly, they had to retrieve Fate Immortal Goo. Spectral Soul's body had shrunk from thousands of meters to hundreds, until he was only a handful of meters tall. Not only that, his soul was no longer condensed, it was very translucent, it swayed with the wind, his aura was very weak. The Grand Tribulation Earth collapse dissipated at this moment. A bright sword light flashed in the sky, immortal zombie Bo Qing had already flown towards Spectral Soul. Mo Yao's remnant soul inside the body screamed, "Spectral Soul! Return my husband to me!" Spectral Soul's gaze was fixed upon the 10 extreme formation. The dark fog in the 10 extreme formation was gone, all of the 10 extreme immortal zombies were sacrificed, only one round ball was left, shining in the light of 9 different colors. Immortal zombie Bo Qing moved closer, "You promised me you will revive him." Spectral Soul turned around, gazing at immortal zombie Bo Qing's face. The split soul that created Bo Qing was already destroyed in the Myriad tribulation. With the split soul lost, how can I revive him? You lied to me. Immortal zombie Bo Qing clenched his fists, a dangerous light was shining in his eyes. Of course I did not lie to you. I am Bo Qing's main body, when I revive, Bo Qing will naturally revive as well. When I dominate the world, it would also mean that Bo Qing has attained rank 9 cultivation level. Isn't this what you were hoping for? Spectral Soul said slowly. Old scumbag. Immortal zombie Bo Qing was furious, he attacked Spectral Soul. But the sword light had just shone and vanished instantly. Immortal zombie Bo Qing floated in front of Spectral Soul, unable to move. You are my final obstacle. He, it is a pity. If Xianxia did not remind me earlier, you might have caused me trouble. But now, he. Did you forget that all of your sword path immortal goo have my will in them? Did you also forget who was the one feeding them over these years? Spectral Soul spoke coldly, he paused before continuing, now, I will give you one final chance. Kill them, and repent for your act of betrayal. Them naturally meant the Heavenly Court Goo immortals in White Heaven. Spit. Humph, foolish woman. At the next moment, Mo Yao's remnant soul was pulled out, devoured by Spectral Soul in one mouthful. After swallowing this remnant soul, Spectral Soul's body condensed slightly. Wu Xie, you will defend me, I only need a little over 10 breaths of time to succeed. Spectral Soul said as he shrunk to the size of a child. Yes. Wu Xie flew up, standing beside Spectral Soul, looking around alertly. The beam of light that penetrated the heavenly wind chi wall was gone. We have no chances left. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals sighed. They retrieved the remaining immortal Gu from Heaven Overseeing Tower as they retreated. Spectral Soul touched this newly refined immortal Gu, with his eyes filled with emotions. After plotting for tens of thousands of years, after so much planning and painstaking efforts, I finally succeeded in refining this rank 9 sovereign immortal fetus Gu. With this immortal Gu, I can surpass all of the venerables in history. I can obtain the body of an otherworldly demon, reaching an unsurpassed realm that nobody has ever seen. All other immortal venerables and demon venerables in history will not be my match. Even if Ren Zhu resurrects, he will be inferior to me. Ha ha ha. Spectral Soul raised his head and laughed. In his laughter, there was insanity, relief, pride, arrogance, and venting. Wind blew, as Spectral Soul swayed in the wind. He almost had used up his full strength. If he did not devour Mo Yao's remnant soul, he might not even be able to keep his form. The laughter stopped. Spectral Soul squinted, having an eerie gaze. The closer I am towards the end, the more I cannot afford to be careless. The remaining soul path Dao marks on him were shining brightly. Using his soul, he could undergo surveillance of a very huge radius. In White Heaven, Heavenly Court's Gu immortals had withdrawn, although they left behind many investigative Gu worms. Spectral Soul snickered. The light in his soul shined brightly as he spat out a breath of spectral chi towards the sky. This spectral chi moved up, penetrating the heavenly wind chi wall and destroying all of the investigative Gu worms left by Heavenly Court's Gu immortals. Not a single one was left. Spectral Soul quickly looked around. Soon, he saw Fang Yuan. At this moment, Tai Bai Yun Sheng and He Lu Lan were guarding him. Fang Yuan was lying on the ground, his eyelids were trembling. He was about to wake up. He is awake, he is almost awake. Tai Bai Yun Sheng cried out in joy. He Lu Lan frowned deeply, looking into the horizon. She said without turning her head, then quickly wake him up. Use fixed immortal travel and leave this bloody place. Spectral Soul frowned slightly, but he soon returned to normal. Right now, they were a gigantic distance apart. The radius of 10,000 li around Tian Mountain was covered by the Myriad tribulations. The entire area looked completely different from before. If Fang Yuan used fixed immortal travel, he could only teleport to 10,000 li away from Tian Mountain. Furthermore, after he wakes up, he might not take a risk and approach the mountain. Even if he takes a risk, there was already enough time for Spectral Soul. After having been enveloped in grand tribulations and myriad tribulations, this entire area was very clean now. The Gu immortals who died and the immortal apertures they left behind had all been refined by the 10 extreme formation. A small portion were also destroyed by the tribulations. Only life and death blessed land was intentionally preserved. There are no problems left. No. Spectral Soul turned his gaze towards Ing Wu Xie. Ing Wu Xie blinked several times, looking at his main body. How much lifespan do you have? Spectral Soul asked. Ing Wu Xie answered, I have 15 minutes left. More than enough. Spectral Soul finally relaxed his mind. He could no longer sustain his form. His body faded and condensed into a ball made of soul. It was the size of a face, firmly condensed like it was solid. It floated towards the ball like sovereign immortal fetus Gu. During this process, Fang Yuan opened his eyes abruptly. Heaven's will. He screamed. He sat up on the ground with a furious and anxious expression. Fang Yuan, you are finally awake. Tai Bai Yun Sheng and He Lu Lan were overjoyed. Boom! Fang Yuan attacked, striking at the two who saved his life. Tai Bai Yun Sheng and He Lu Lan were caught unprepared. They were sent flying. Fixed immortal travel. At the next moment, Fang Yuan used this rank 6 immortal Gu. Guh. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was shaking. The activation of fixed immortal travel failed. Damn it! I must make it in time. He gritted his teeth as he thought this, activating fixed immortal travel again. Before Tai Bai Yunsheng and He Lu Lan arrived, he succeeded. He was 10,000 li away from Etian Mountain. Seeing the entire battlefield that had changed beyond recognition, he was stunned, his entire body and mind froze. It was too late. Like what Spectral Soul had expected, Fang Yuan could not make it in time. But right when Spectral Soul was about to enter the sovereign immortal fetus Gu, a hand stretched out. Wu Xie grabbed Spectral Soul. Spectral Soul was already almost out of strength. Before he could react, he heard Wu Xie say 4 words. Lead soul into dream. Wah. At the next moment, Spectral Soul fell into a dream realm. And Fang Yuan's soul flew out of Wu Xie's body. Next, he rapidly entered the rank 9 immortal Gu in front of him. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1019, So It Was Changed Soul. Chapter 1019, So It Was Changed Soul. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Let us rewind time back to a while ago. Heaven Overseeing Tower floated above Spectral Soul's head in phantom form. But at this moment, 100 of Spectral Soul's strong dark arms shrunk immensely, turning dry, thin and long. Obtaining his help, the 10 extreme immortal zombie lifeless formation underwent a huge change. The scattered dark clouds gathered towards the center. At the center of the dark clouds, a round ball could be vaguely seen. It spun on its own, shining with light in 14 different colors. Seeing this, Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord had an anxious expression. He ordered, "Chop off these arms." Heaven Overseeing Tower was like a rocket. It drew an eye-piercing rainbow light in the sky as it slashed forward. The rainbow light cut all of Spectral Soul's arms off upon contact. Wu Xie, go and deal with Heavenly Court's Gu immortals. Immortal Zombie Bo Qing called out. It was a simple matter for them to deal with Fang Yuan's side. But because of a series of events, they were constantly interrupted. Wu Xie gritted his teeth. He was unwilling to leave at this moment. Give me a moment to make Fang Yuan sleep first. Saying this, he activated the rank 8 immortal killer move, Lead Soul into Dream. Fang Yuan could not dodge, he was dragged into the dream realm. At the pavilion in the center of the lake, the music from the zither could be heard. Fang Yuan met Star Constellation Immortal Venerable again. Unravel Dream. Unravel Dream. Unravel Dream. Unravel Dream. Unravel Dream. Unravel Dream. Fang Yuan hurriedly activated his Dream Path Killer move, but the dream realm held firm. All he saw were transparent ripples in his vision. His Unravel Dream might work against the dream realm, but it was only rank 6. In contrast, Wu Xie's killer move was rank 8. The difference between the two was too vast. Fang Yuan could not unravel the dream realm. At once, Fang Yuan's heart sank to rock bottom. The zither music continued. As Star Constellation Immortal Venerable smiled at Fang Yuan gently, she sang with a soft voice. Fang Yuan smiled bitterly. He knew that he had lost. Deep in the dream realm, his only method, Unravel Dream, had failed. Fang Yuan could not turn this around. But at this time, Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's singing entered his ears again. Fallen songs and despondent heroes, difficulty in resisting the trials of fate. Bent swords sink in the sand, rising and falling from ancient times, the rumbling of an unceasing heavenly river. Alas! Spectral night carries a soul into endless dreams. Where can one rest in peace? During spring and autumn body and mind shifts, only heavens will remains vast and boundless. Along with it, a wave of information once again entered Fang Yuan's mind. Fang Yuan, who was deep inside the dream realm, suddenly jolted. During spring and autumn body and mind shifts, only heavens will remains vast and boundless. At this moment, he finally understood the meaning of this final line. As it turned out, the mysterious rank 7 immortal Gu that he had obtained from Bo Qing's immortal zombie body was changed soul immortal Gu. Back then, Mo Yao had activated this changed soul immortal Gu at the critical moment because she was afraid that her lover, Bo Qing, would fail his tribulation. Their souls swapped and she saved Bo Qing, deceiving the entire world in the process. Bo Qing also wanted to make use of Mo Yao to pass his tribulation, but he was afraid that the Myriad tribulation might affect his mind, thus, he gave this immortal Gu to Mo Yao, rather than lending it to her. Therefore, changed soul immortal Gu was refined by Mo Yao, it was filled with her will. Thereafter, Fang Yuan used the light of wisdom and Mo Yao's fake will to create a Gu formation, containing these immortal Gu that he deceived while slowly refining them. Because of the relationship with Mo Yao's will, changed soul immortal Gu was the first to be refined by Fang Yuan. As for the other sword path immortal Gu, they were filled with Bo Qing's will, thus, they had slower progress, they could not be refined before the battle of Tian Mountain, they were still inside Hu immortal blessed land. According to the hint of the final line, it was not possible to use unraveled dream to escape anymore. He had to use changed soul immortal Gu, to swap his soul with Wu Xie's. Of course, it was not that simple. The information in Fang Yuan's mind also included an immortal killer move. This immortal killer move not only used the rank 7 changed soul immortal Gu as a core, it even included attitude Gu, unravel mystery immortal Gu, and also a lot of dream path and soul path mortal Gu. Fang Yuan hesitated slightly, before deciding to follow it. According to his previous experiences, Fang Yuan knew that the information was highly reliable. Most importantly, he had no other choice. At this moment, Fang Yuan was at his wit's end, the enemy was Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, purely with his foundation and ability, he could do nothing to the other party. Only by following the instructions could he obtain any hope of victory. Thus, he activated the immortal killer move. He succeeded. The souls of Fang Yuan and Wu Xie were secretly swapped. Fang Yuan's soul was originally hit by lead soul into dream and was deep in a dream realm. After switching souls, he covertly entered Wu Xie's pure dream reality seeker physique body, while Wu Xie's soul went into Fang Yuan's immortal zombie body, but he was inside the dream realm in Fang Yuan's place. After switching their souls, Fang Yuan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. But after seeing himself, he thought quickly, he placed his hands at his waist, laughing smugly, "Ha ha ha, this time, why don't you try and escape?" Fang Yuan. He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing shouted. But Fang Yuan was deep in sleep, he could not be woken up. At this moment, immortal zombie Bo Qing raised his hand, preparing to attack He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing. Fang Yuan's heart jumped. He had set an alliance agreement with He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing, if he left them in the lurch, he might face a backlash from the alliance agreement. But if he saved them, he might attract suspicion, his identity might be exposed. But soon, Fang Yuan realized. I am overthinking it. I have left all my immortal Gu in my original body, I have no way to stop Bo Qing, even if Wu Xie has many immortal Gu, lead soul into dream is an immortal killer move, how can I learn to use it so quickly? Fang Yuan could only watch. But an unexpected surprise quickly occurred. There was a huge suction force from the ground. The immortals were caught off guard, they were all sucked into the ground, their legs were deeply buried in the ground, a strong force was restricting them, preventing them from moving. Grand tribulation, earth collapse. Bo Qing and Wu Xie were shocked, they did not expect that while the Myriad tribulation was dealing with Spectral Soul, there was actually a grand tribulation waiting to ambush them. What was even more shocking was that He Lulan, Tai Bai Yunxing, and Fang Yuan were unaffected by the Grand Tribulation. After landing on the ground, He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing regained their freedom, they could move freely. Furthermore, at this moment, the 10 extreme formation had created already the mysterious ball, the force that restricted the space around them vanished. He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunxing brought Fang Yuan and rapidly retreated, escaping for their lives. Immortal zombie Bo Qing's eyes shined with deep killing intent, but he could only watch as they escaped. Soon, He Lulan, Tai Bai Yunxing, and Fang Yuan escaped far away, vanishing from Bo Qing's field of vision. Humph, Fang Yuan can escape for now, but can he escape for his entire life? As an otherworldly demon, you are the best tool to use against heaven's will, how can we let you go so easily? As for He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng, even though they are not otherworldly demons, they were affected by him and became fate escapees. Even if we do not deal with them, Heavenly Court would eliminate them eventually. Bo Qing snorted coldly. Fang Yuan heard this and quickly thought, it seems that an otherworldly demon is very useful to Shadow Sect. No wondering Wu Xie only wanted to capture me and not kill me. Strange. That grand tribulation, earth collapse, why did it not affect He Lulan and Tai Bai Yunsheng? Heaven's will, forget it, the most important matter at hand is to familiarize myself with the dream path goo worms I have. If I have to attack later and I fail to use lead soul into dream, wouldn't I get exposed? Fang Yuan took a peek and was shocked to find that he had more than just dream path immortal goo. There was also change soul immortal goo, attitude goo, unravel mystery immortal goo, and other mortal goo, they had all been brought over through his soul. And this mysterious immortal killer move had another use, it allowed Fang Yuan to use Ing Wu Xie's goo worms. It seems that attitude goo had an important use. It allowed me to disguise myself and deceive Ing Wu Xie's will that is inside these dream path immortal goo and mortal goo. It is like earlier, when I used Mo Yao's fake will to coax immortal goo out of Bo Qing's immortal zombie body. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan glanced at immortal zombie Bo Qing again. If the other party knew that Ing Wu Xie was already someone else, moreover, he was now the culprit who harmed Bo Qing and took out most of his sword path immortal goo, immortal zombie Bo Qing might behead Fang Yuan immediately without saying anything else. The situation was still very dangerous. Even though they swapped souls and Fang Yuan had escaped from the dream realm, he was currently more fragile than he ever was. If he was found out, there would be no hope. It was as if he was walking on a tightrope above a valley, if he was careless, he would fall and die with a mangled corpse. Fang Yuan gathered his concentration, he immediately moved his limbs, struggling intensely. The result was, his body sank deeper and deeper. He shouted, acting like he was furious. But internally, he felt extremely glad, this grand tribulation came at a great time. I am stuck in here and cannot escape, I cannot even generate thoughts, thus I cannot attack. If I cannot attack, I will not be exposed. This gives me the opportunity to familiarize myself with these unknown goo worms. Stop struggling, stop thinking. It will make our situation worse, we cannot deal with this at the moment. Immortal zombie Bo Qing, who was beside him, quickly attempted to console him in a calm tone. Fang Yuan observed and noticed that Bo Qing was not suspicious, he finally felt slightly relieved. He sighed, looking at Spectral Soul, we can only hope that our main body saves us. But Spectral Soul was also deeply trapped, after the first Myriad tribulation, Wind Lightning Prison, the second Myriad tribulation, Grey Memory, descended. The grey fog descended at a very slow speed. It was so slow that anyone who was undergoing the tribulation could retaliate in many ways. But Spectral Soul did not move. He stood quietly, like a solemn mountain. Did our main body get hit already? Fang Yuan shouted, looking extremely anxious, this is such a good chance, you have to retaliate. In his mind, he was thinking about other things, Spectral Soul was restricted now, he was glad to see this. But on the other hand, he was within the range of the Myriad tribulation Grey Memory, he felt some unease. The Grand Tribulation was already unstoppable, if the Myriad tribulation descended, how would he survive? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1020, Obtain the Greatest Gain. Chapter 1020, Obtain the Greatest Gain. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. The Myriad tribulation is coming. Fang Yuan gritted his teeth, looking at the grey cloud of fog descending slowly. Immortal zombie Bo Qing squinted, his muscles were tense. The grey cloud descended, but it caused no harm. What is going on? Is this a harmless Myriad tribulation? Fang Yuan was nervous, seeing that there was no commotion. He touched all over his body as he cried out in suspicion. Bo Qing did not answer him. Someone in heavenly court quickly recognized this myriad tribulation, gray memory. But Fang Yuan and Mo Yao's remnant soul did not know it. However, soon, Fang Yuan and Mo Yao's remnant soul obtained some understanding of their own. Because after Spectral Soul was shrouded in the gray fog, his memories started to appear in images before them. His experiences during childhood, in his youth, during adulthood, all of these experiences were a form of interrogation and torture in regards to Spectral Soul's heart. He made countless choices that decided his future fate. And at the same time, Tai Bai Yunxing carried Fang Yuan as he escaped at full speed. He Lu Lan took a final look at the gray fog in the sky before following after them. Inside Fang Yuan's body, Ing Wu Xie was trapped in the dream realm. He was facing star constellation Immortal Venerable. He gritted his teeth, shouting maniacally, pouncing toward star constellation Immortal Venerable. However, he did not hit her. This was a dream realm, distance was not what it seemed. He might seem to be close to star constellation Immortal Venerable, but no matter how many steps he moved forward, his distance with star constellation Immortal Venerable did not change. Star constellation Immortal Venerable played the zither but did not sing. The music was beautiful, like the sound of a clear mountain spring. Compared to Ing Wu Xie's agitated behavior, it formed a stark contrast. Quickly let me out, quickly let me out. Heaven's will. You accursed heaven's will. He pointed at star constellation Immortal Venerable as he shouted. But star constellation Immortal Venerable was unmoved. She showed neither joy nor rage. Ing Wu Xie blinked. He forced himself to calm down, muttering, "Don't be anxious, I need to stay calm, stay calm. I know everything about lead soul into dream. This dream realm has not manifested externally, it will fade away soon, it cannot contain me forever. Also, the Gu immortals on Fang Yuan's side will save me. Once I wake up, I will return and expose Fang Yuan's identity. Now, I can only hope that Tian Mountain isn't far away after I wake up." But Ing Wu Xie's wish was not going to be fulfilled. Because next, Tai Bai Yunxing and He Lu Lan met with some southern border Gu immortals. Both sides fought while moving. Not only did He Lu Lan and Tai Bai Yunxing not have the time to wake up Ing Wu Xie, they even got farther and farther away from Tian Mountain. Ing Wu Xie and Bo Qing were all immobilized in the ground because of earth collapse. Waves of gray fog coiled around immortal zombie Bo Qing as they shined with bright lights, showing constantly changing scenes. These were Mo Yao's memories. As a variant human, she had suffered a fate of being ostracized. Humph. Immortal zombie Bo Qing snickered. Facing these sad traumas in her life, Mo Yao's remnant soul showed her strong-willed personality. "Strange, why are you unaffected by the gray fog?" Bo Qing looked at Ing Wu Xie, who was beside him. Fang Yuan was thinking, "I want to know the answer to this question as well." According to logic, gray memory affected Spectral Soul and Mo Yao's remnant soul. There was no reason for Fang Yuan to be unaffected. But for some reason, nothing happened to Fang Yuan. Evidently, this myriad tribulation, gray memory, let Fang Yuan off. He did not get exposed because of it. Don't tell me this is the manipulation of Heaven's will. Earlier, Heavens will let He Lu Lan and Tai Bai Yunxing be unaffected by the tribulation. Did it want them to bring my body and get far away from this place? Fang Yuan had many guesses, but behind these guesses, there was a cold sensation when Fang Yuan thought about them. He felt his hair standing. There were a lot of terrifying implications behind his thoughts. But right now, facing immortal zombie Bo Qing's suspicion, Fang Yuan could only pretend to be ignorant. "I don't know." Fang Yuan shook his head. He pointed, "Yours is pretty interesting." Bo Qing snorted, "It seems that because you were just born, and only have 18 hours to live, you had no time to experience these things." Mo Yao's remnant soul inside immortal zombie Bo Qing did not suspect Fang Yuan. Her attention was mostly on Spectral Soul. Regarding Spectral Soul's main body, Mo Yao's remnant soul was quite worried. But next, the gray fog showed that Spectral Soul Demon Venerable had obtained the food path true inheritance of the Beast Man Gu Immortal back during his time. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable's nature made Fang Yuan quite shocked. Heavenly Court's Gu immortals were in a commotion, but because they were in phantom form, they could not do anything. At this time, in the sky, the third Myriad tribulation descended, grand clear space. Countless green birds slashed at Spectral Soul, the power was terrifying, the expressions of Fang Yuan and Mo Yao changed. Next, Fang Yuan saw many scenes in the grey fog. Sacred Feather City, Thieving Heaven True Inheritance, 88 True Yang Building, the Red Lotus in the River of Time. So it turned out that Spectral Soul Demon Venerable knew about Sacred Feather City's location during his lifetime. Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's name was Ben Jia Sun, but even though he was an otherworldly demon like me, he was not from Earth. Lifespan Gu, it seems that Heaven's will is the greatest restriction of immortal venerables and demon venerables. Red Lotus. Ghost Face. When I failed my rebirth last time, it was actually Spectral Soul Demon Venerable who helped me. I understand now, in my previous life, the great strength true martial immortal zombie was killed, and the 10 extreme formation could not be completed. Spectral Soul made use of me to start all over again. What? The Legends of Renzu is Renzu's true inheritance. Next, Fang Yuan saw Spectral Soul using the method of soul devouring, but still failed when dealing with the Golden Soul. He saw 7 out of the 10 split soul returning to the world of the living. Next, combined with the portion of grey memory affecting Mo Yao's remnant soul, he understood the origin of Wisdom Sword Immortal Gu, as well as the complex relationship between Bo Qing and Mo Yao. That soul which is sleeping while emitting golden radiance is Verdant Great Sun. The one born from Renzu's right eye in the legend. Bo Qing is azure. That purple is actually Tai by Yun Sheng's master, Purple Mountain True Monarch, whom I randomly named. So the truth behind Mo Yao and Bo Qing was like this. Heaven's will. So all of those superb immortal materials are filled with Heaven's will. Shadow Sect is wary of them and had to give them up. After obtaining them, they seemed harmless to me. But what about in the future? If I carry these immortal materials around, will I draw the attention of Heaven's will? So that's it. A Wisdom Path Gu Immortal of Shadow Sect, Dali, was the rank 8 great strength true martial immortal zombie that was suppressed. Everything makes sense now. At this time, the Myriad tribulation grand clear space dissipated, while the Myriad tribulation dark oil poison descended, attacking Spectral Soul. The following scenes made Fang Yuan even more shocked. He finally understood that the secret of him having spring-autumn cicada had been known by Shadow Sect since long ago. Because of Shadow Sect's help, he was not exposed for so long after the collapse of 88 True Yang Building. In contrast, Shadow Sect's Qin Bai Sheng and others helped him deal with the problem, engaging in a battle with Feng Gu. Shadow Sect's strength was incredible, they managed to deduce the tribulations. The secret of rebirth, the fact that I own spring-autumn cicada, after this battle, the entire world knows. Shadow Sect, Spectral Soul, they seem to want to use my otherworldly demon status, but because of a twist of fate, Shadow Sect's Northern Plains branch was almost completely wiped out. No, in a way, isn't this showing the power of Heaven's will? Shadow Sect could deduce all the tribulations. What method did they use? This is simply the ultimate weapon against tribulations. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable, he is likely the strongest venerable. During his life, he might have been equal to the other venerables, but using the food path true inheritance, he created the soul-devouring method. He could steal the cultivation memories and experiences of others. Thus, he could not raise his attainment level directly like with Dream Realms, but after so many years of accumulation and development, his attainment level in all other paths, including Formation Path and Wisdom Path, are definitely at least Great Grandmaster. It is not strange that he deduced the tribulations. In this case, it is too strange that he is not reacting. Could it be that he is doing this on purpose? Dark oil poison and grey memory faded, but the vine dragon tribulation descended soon after. Heaven Overseeing Tower began its final struggle. It manipulated the Myriad tribulation and directly attacked the 10 extreme formation. Spectral Soul's fight to defend it made Fang Yuan, who witnessed everything, tongue-tied. He had once been proud of his battle tactics that were refined over time, but compared to Spectral Soul, it was nothing. Eventually, Heaven Overseeing Tower broke apart. heavenly court failed, even heaven overseeing Tower Lord was sacrificed. Both sides suffered great losses. Spectral Soul's body was only a handful of meters tall. He was no longer as condensed as previously, his aura was very weak. Mo Yao's remnant soul manipulated the immortal zombie body, flying into the sky and questioning Spectral Soul, but she was wiped out. You are my final obstacle. He, it is a pity. If Xianxia did not remind me earlier, you might have caused me trouble. But now, he. Did you forget that all of your sword path immortal goo have my will in them? Did you also forget who was the one feeding them over these years? Spectral Soul's words made Fang Yuan's heart jump. During this period of time, he had already deciphered many details regarding the immortal killer move lead soul into dream. This was thanks to the fact that Xianxia only had goo worms that were meant to use lead soul into dream. Even though Shadow Sect designed this killer move for him, according to his cultivation level, there were several versions. But Xianxia had distinctly classified them, he placed a pile for each of their respective goo worms. This allowed him to use the killer move much more efficiently and easily. But at the same time, Fang Yuan could learn about them more easily. Fang Yuan understood, facing Spectral Soul's main body, I only have one chance to strike. If I fail once, Spectral Soul will react and I will have no opportunity left. Spectral Soul swallowed Mo Yao's remnant soul, saying to Fang Yuan, Xianxia, defend me. I just need a little over 10 breaths of time to succeed. Yes. Fang Yuan had a calm mind, he flew up, standing beside Spectral Soul, looking around alertly. We have no chances left. Heavenly Court's Goo immortals sighed as they retreated. After plotting for tens of thousands of years, after so much planning and painstaking efforts, I finally succeeded in refining this rank 9 sovereign immortal fetus Goo. With this immortal Goo, I can surpass all of the venerables in history, I can obtain the body of an otherworldly demon, reaching an unsurpassed realm that nobody has ever seen. All other immortal venerables and demon venerables in history will not be my match, even if Ren Zhu resurrects, he will be inferior to me. Ha ha ha. Spectral Soul raised his head and laughed. Sovereign immortal fetus Goo? Fang Yuan's heart was moved. What use does this Goo have? It can allow Spectral Soul to reach a realm where nobody has never gotten to before. Is this realm immortality? The closer I am towards the end, the more I cannot afford to be careless. Spectral Soul squinted, investigating carefully. Fang Yuan's heart nearly skipped a beat. But in the end, Spectral Soul only spit out some spectral chi and destroyed all of the investigative goo worms. As expected. The final line of the song indicated the true use of ghostly concealment, it is to prevent the detection of ghosts and souls. Back then, Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable could take Luo Pa Valley, Dang Hun Mountain, and travel through the Obsession Death Domain without being restricted by endless souls, it was because of this move. Thus, Spectral Soul did not suspect me. It seems that Xia's soul is also his split soul. Only towards himself could he be so trusting without reservations. Next, Fang Yuan witnessed Spectral Soul floating towards the sovereign immortal fetus Goo. At the crucial moment, Fang Yuan calmed down, he was no longer nervous. According to the song, he had to destroy this sovereign immortal fetus Goo. Because immortal Goo were fragile, he just needed to squeeze it to destroy it. But Spectral Soul, no matter how weak he was, there was an unknown level of risk to deal with him. But Fang Yuan was firm and determined, he directly targeted Spectral Soul, snatching sovereign immortal fetus Goo. Lead soul into dream. He struck. He had not comprehended it entirely, this was not a complete immortal killer move, it was inferior to the original rank 8 version. But right now, Spectral Soul was already weak to his limits. Fang Yuan succeeded in one attempt. Next, he left Xia's body, doing the same thing as Spectral Soul, his soul floated towards sovereign immortal fetus Goo. At this moment, he had finally broken free from Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's instructions, he took the fruits of Spectral Soul's labor, the achievement he had spent countless years and paid an immeasurable price to painstakingly create. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know in the report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible.